Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 202. 202. What is it?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
It's now 2022.
2022, episode 202. 3 years will be, is that right? No, 4 years will be.
4 years will be in February.
Okay. Yeah. 208. 208. All right. That being said, guys, welcome. We have some good stuff tonight, I think. We've got a bottle that Nate picked up when he was in Nashville, and we're going to talk about that from King's Family Distillery, and it's called Ryeconic, which I love the name.
That's a great name.
It's a great bottle, look, everything like that. We'll get into that. We have not had this before. Crux Cigars is who we're featuring tonight by way of Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. They're the ones that sponsor the featured cigar most weeks, every week, if we don't have a special guest. So Crux Cigars, this is the guild that we're smoking, so we'll get into that a little bit as well here in part one. Also want to thank Altadis USA. I was using this nice gift lighter from Josh Bentley and Cutter from Aging Room. This is a pretty cool one. That was a set that he left here for the garage. So if you're ever in the garage on the podcast, got a big badass lighter here for you to use. It's big, badass. So thank you, Altadis USA. We also have the second cigar tonight from them, H. Upman, Nicaragua by AJ Fernandez, which is on probably my top 10 list of budget cigars,
Absolutely.
under $10, $11. So under your average price, we've got that tonight. And we've featured that before, I believe, as well. I know we've smoked in the second half before. What else? BS Cigar Company, the Gold and Silver, are available through Tinder Box at Easton and a handful of other shops in the Columbus area. But if you guys need some or want to try some, just contact the podcast, contact BS Cigar Company through social media, and you should be able to get your hands on some of the gold that are made by Plasencia or the silver that are made by Eric Espinosa. Also want to thank you guys who support us, patreon.com/bourbonandbs podcast. That's something that you guys can go on, do a monthly or one time. I recommend doing the monthly through that or through Venmo if you want to do a one-time contribution for a bottle or just a support. Last week, Spencer, our guest, when I was talking about the, filling up the propane, this is that time of the year, he's like, literally on the note, he said, buy more propane because if he comes back in, he wants it to be warm. So support like that definitely helps out. Patreon.com, you have $5, $10, $25 tiers.
Or he could have given you money and put the footnote of buy another heater.
Could have. Whatever. It was a nice contribution from Spencer, so I appreciate that. Good having him on last week, episode 201. That was a great, fun episode as well, so check that out. Yes, the new year. Oh, I wanted to mention also buyjack.com. I was talking with them today with the measurements. Hopefully we'll have some mock-ups for the stuff we've been talking about for about a month or so with the hoodies. Those should be available hopefully in the next couple weeks.
The blue one like you're wearing?
Blue one.
Prototype we were talking about.
Well, there's a blue one and a black one of the BS. I can do more colors of the BS hoodie. And then there is a prototype with the unique one that we've talked about. So that one hopefully will get all that up there. So you'll get some hoodies for the nice cold weather. Get you guys all nice and warm in Bourbon and BS Cigar Company gear. The shirts are also available. I've got a blue one on. Nate's got the gray. I love that gray with black. It's a little more subtle, but it's nice. It's a nice look to it. We've got some other colors on there, different designs as well. So now I think that covers everything, right? Buyjack.com/bourbonandbs for your shirts. So check that out. Got Sean in the audience taking selfies, I think. Yeah. I was about to say selfies of yourself, but I think that's redundant.
Is that kind of like when you said toasted bread?
I stand by that. It's not near as bright on the set tonight.
I was telling Sean, we haven't been running that backlight just because it kind of puts too much of a glare on the banner behind us.
You can try it. Sean, you mind hitting that light switch and see what it looks like here for these guys? I mean, they need to see us, apparently. Especially on the audio, you need to see us.
Especially beards like ours, right?
Yeah. That's not too bad. Let's see if that helps. You can leave it on. Yeah, leave it on. Yeah. I think I angled the banner. It's not too bad. There you go, Sean. There we are. There's a little bit of glare off my head, too. Took off my hat. You're welcome. Does that add light to your screen there? Boom.
Nice glare.
And now it's like looking in the sun. All right. For part two, the topic tonight is going to be winter is coming.
Feels like it's here.
Yeah, I know, but like it's the
I
same through a
know.
show that I didn't really watch. But anyways,
The same here.
yeah. So Winners Coming Part 2. Stay tuned for that. If you guys want to share this, I'm going to do that here as we get into it. As Nate talks about the bottle, I'm going to try to multitask here, learning about the bottle as well as he says, now that's what I'm used to seeing. Sean says that. This is also a good reminder if you're listening on the audio afterwards or you're watching the video, every Wednesday around 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we go live on Facebook and YouTube. So that's a good way to get involved with the conversation, either part 1, part 2, or if you are just sticking around for the whole 2 to 3 hours, you're in it. We love it. Absolutely love it. So let's get into this. I don't think I'm forgetting anything as far as the housekeeping here.
No, you're good. You nailed it.
All right. Well, thanks, man. Happy New Year. Nate, what'd you do for New Year's before we get into that bottle, just briefly, so we can kind of get everyone on the same page here?
Well, so New Year's Eve was my birthday. So I went to the Tinder Box, smoked a few cigars, even bought a cigar for one of the customers that was there because he had never had one before. So I was like, well, here, try this out. And he smoked and he goes, this may be my new favorite cigar.
Which I'm not happy about.
I know it's a limited release that comes out once a year.
Plus, he was smoking BS Gold like it's his job.
He's been smoking a lot of like the Fuente Chateaus too.
Right.
So he's been branching out. He's been branching out. But yeah, it was the Fuente and Añejo.
I got it.
So
how was your New Year's rest of that?
Then went to dinner for my birthday at Ocean Club. Had a nice dinner there. Was home by like 8:20.
Nice.
And because it was like in the mid 50s and was actually going to get a little bit warmer, sat on the back patio, built a fire, smoked 2 more cigars, had a pour of whiskey.
Nice.
Went inside about 1 a.m.
Sounds like a good birthday / New Year's, that's for sure.
Yeah, always a party.
Always a party.
It's not necessarily mine, but there's always a party.
That's right. Yeah, so New Year's for me, it was I worked.
Yeah.
New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. I worked at the shop, and then we did close at 6, so I went next door to Fido, who was our neighbor, and we do events with them and everything like that. It was a great pub. They do a 7 o'clock Irish toast for the New Year because it's, New Year's in Ireland at that point. So went over there for a little bit. Nothing too crazy. Had, one interaction with some drunk lady that was annoying. But other than that, it was pretty tame.
Those usually go together.
No,
like,
it was
annoying and drunk lady. Like it's almost, repetitive.
Yeah, it was funny. Like she's talking to me and she's like, "You look shady." I'm like, "Well, thank you very much." At that point, I'm just like already annoyed, so I'm just like killing with sarcasm and kindness at the same time. And then my buddy Grant's there.
So for
she's
you,
like,
kindness, sarcasm.
So my buddy Grant's there, and she's like, "Oh, Grant? Well, he's shady. Well, he used to be before he was married, and then blah 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 blah." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. Thank you for stopping by." She's like, "Yeah, it's so great meeting you." I was like, not getting it at all. Then she walks over to Grant and she's like talking to him, and Grant's like, "Yeah, I know Steve. Like we're like this close to each other. It's so weird. It's just like a weird fucking thing." And then she's like, "Oh, I know." He's like, "Yeah, I know Steve. I've known him for like, for a very long time." Well, apparently she's also a regular in her mind at Fido, which I've never met. She lived overseas. It's weird, man. And then I'm like, "Yeah, Grant, she just called you shady." And she looks at me. She's like, "I cannot believe you just said that." And I'm like, "I didn't know you were being like a secret. Like what? Like, go have another drink." It was like 8:30. It was 8:30. I'm like, "Oh Lord."
That's one of the reasons why I was home by 8:30.
And then I watched the train wrecks, the shit shows that are on the networks and CNN and NBC. You got to pick between Miley Cyrus and Pete Davidson or the drunk ass anchors and stuff on CNN making fools of themselves.
I think
it's hysterical and also appalling.
I think I'll take
they completely negate anything they do for 364 days a year for me when they talk like they did on New Year's Eve. I guess it's bad, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's it's funny." It's like someone should be fired.
Oh,
like good Lord. Anyways,
I think I would prefer the drunk CNN anchors over Miley Cyrus and Pete Davidson.
Yeah,
I don't care what Miley Cyrus is wearing.
I'm not getting into it or not wearing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about King's Family Distillery. You looked this up a little bit.
Yeah.
This is Ryeconic.
Yes.
And it is, would you say, which batch was it?
So it's batch 4, I believe, because it's got a little label.
Yeah.
Hand printed underneath the barcode 004. This is a seasonal release that they do. So it's not something that's readily available.
Yeah.
I picked it up back in November when I was down in Nashville. So we were at one of the stores and I wanted to get something that couldn't get here in Ohio.
Yeah.
So this was one that I saw and just I didn't even look it up. Just looking at the bottle and then the other ones that I was looking at, like this one intrigued me the most. And then I started actually paying attention to what's on the back of the bottle. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I think I'll go with this one.
Nice.
So King's Family Distillery is located outside of Pigeon Forge in Tennessee. So they're in the Smoky Mountains. I'm not going to try and pronounce the name of the town.
No.
Sean Anderson will probably be able to say. But yeah, they're all the way over in Eastern Kentucky. And they started distilling in 2018.
Okay.
The two founders of the company, you have Justin and Kara King. Justin started in the whiskey industry in less legal ways.
How so? I mean, I'll bite.
Well, that's literally what they say on his profile.
That's it? That's all we know?
My guess is since he is from the Smoky Mountains, I'm going to say he was moonshining.
Okay.
Because
good for him, entrepreneur.
Because then he actually got recruited to work for the first legal moonshine distillery in the state of Tennessee.
From prison?
No.
I mean, if you know, I mean, you can.
Well,
it's called networking, I think.
But yeah, so when he was, and they didn't say what the company was, but he created over 100 flavors and products when he was with that distillery, including apple pie moonshine, white lightning, another one called blue frost,
white lightning,
moonshine cherries.
Yeah,
was another one. He got their products in all 50 states and in 60 countries. So he was basically the face of the brand as the master distiller for this moonshine company.
That's good.
His wife, Kara, her family is the largest. Interesting taste note there on
the finish.
Her family is one of the largest suppliers of rye grain in the United States. And so she had started to work for the family business doing that, moved from her hometown in Minnesota to Louisville, and then moved with her husband to Tennessee, and then left the family business when the two of them started this distillery in 2018.
Okay.
So they're fairly new. So
Sean Anderson says his granddaddy was a big moonshiner. So there you go.
Not surprising. So as a lot of companies, like if you look on their website at products available, they have like a couple vodkas, a couple gins, a lot of flavored whiskeys. Because we talked about those, like sometimes those are the products you'll make in order to get some money coming in.
Yeah,
quickly.
Because they don't take the aging process there.
Yeah.
So you source a lot of times. You'll source your whiskeys or ryes or whatever, your bourbons and your ryes, while you do some of the gins, vodkas, and stuff like that.
That doesn't the whiskeys that don't have to be aged a certain amount of time. Yeah.
We talked to other distilleries that do that, the small startups or wwhatever, that, eventually their plan typically is to go with their own
in-house
juice.
Yeah. Like they have, one of theirs is an award-winning whiskey and it's a 14-year. So obviously that's not their juice, but they're the ones that bought it and blended it. This one is one of those. So this is a 5-year product. So obviously with them just opening in 2018, this juice isn't coming out of them. And even says it right on the back of the bottle, distilled in Indiana.
Right.
So this is going to be coming out of MGP. And if you look at the bottle, like if you actually had this bottle and we're looking at it up close, it's the exact same bottle as a Willet bottle. And Willet used to get their rye from MGP as well. And they were really known for that 3 and the 4-year ryes.
Yeah.
So what they did with this, they take a 4-year MGP rye, 95% rye, 5% malted barley, and then they will rebarrel it in a 30-gallon barrel that they actually scorch score the inside.
Score it. Yeah, it says scored.
They are actually cutting lines into the staves. And what that's going to do, also being a 30-gallon barrel, it's going to create more surface area for the product to come in contact with. So it's going to age that additional year, but it's going to pick up a little more characteristic more quickly.
Okay.
So it's a 5-year product, 4 years out of MGP, and then a year in that scored barrel. and then bottled at their distillery in Tennessee. Each batch comes in around 112 proof. This specific one is 111.3. So
111.3. It's healthy.
I don't know. What do those Willets come in at? I know they vary.
They vary. Yeah, I mean, you know what? I haven't looked at one of the bottles. I don't have any of those anymore, unfortunately. But they varied around, I think, that like 110 to 115, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sure someone's calling me out on that right now, but I just don't recall.
Yeah, I've got a 4-year Willet at home, so yeah. I mean,
Jesus. I'm trying to share it. I feel like I can't say I don't like Facebook because I think they'll just ban us, but sometimes I don't like the way everything changes on this.
Yeah. So to answer Ray's question, he's asking how they score. Basically, that barrel, before that second barrel, before they actually dump the whiskey into it, they basically just cut grooves into the staves,
creating more surface area. Therefore,
yeah.
I find it interesting though, because like obviously you're going to be going into it, so you wouldn't have that fresh, the barrel. You know what I mean? It's a new 30. I would assume.
Yeah, I'd assume it's a new 30 because I didn't see that as a finished
really
barrel.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
Plus not many companies are using 30-gallon barrels.
Yeah.
So my guess is they're taking staves specifically for a 30-gallon barrel, scoring it, just cutting grooves into the staves.
Yeah.
And then building the barrel. But when you think about it, it's kind of the same concept as Maker's Mark when they take some of the other oak staves and put it into the barrels. Like what they're doing is they're just creating more surface area of wood for that whiskey to touch. It's the same thing with this, just a different way of going about it.
Right.
Instead of adding wood to it, they're just creating more surface area by cutting into the wood.
It's an interesting process, obviously using a smaller barrel and then doing that process to it. It's, it's unique. How long do they leave it in there? I missed
a year.
An extra year.
Yeah. So it's 4 years MGP.
Right.
And then 1 year that additional barrel.
This says age 5 years, 0 months. So right on the nose there.
Yeah. And they've been doing a lot of experiments with this product. Like they've done it in toasted barrels. They've done a third barrel finish on it. Because this has won some gold medals. Like last year, it won a gold medal in San Francisco. It was a double gold top 50 rye in the U.S. in I think 2020, or maybe 2021. So it's got some accolades behind it. So because of that, they're trying to utilize this product as much as possible in different ways.
So it's interesting, again, summary there, it says on here, the original rye grain used to produce the distillation was provided by Kara's family, which you mentioned that was her thing. So that's going to MGP, then they're doing all this, right? That's how I'm reading this.
So
the rye used for the mash bill is from her family.
Yeah, so she left the family business in 2018 when they started this. But the family business is one of the largest suppliers of rye grain in the U.S. So her family's company supplies MGP with that rye grain.
It's a bit inbred. That's really cool, though.
They have one product I thought you would really enjoy. It's a bourbon, and it's 99% corn.
I might. I was confused, if you recall, with the Elvis.
Yeah. How one of the barrels that goes into that's a 99 corn. Yeah. You're like, was not expecting that.
No, I was. Yeah, it totally threw me off. But that's kind of the fun of it, So
yeah.
So what do you think of it? Thank you for looking all that up. I think you were part of the business. So Nate's drinking out of a Glencairn. I'm drinking out of a rocks glass with no rocks. What do you think?
I really enjoy it.
Okay.
It's not as spicy or floral as I get from a lot of ryes. I get this candied sweetness in it, like this honey note in it. and it's just really, really smooth and pleasant.
I'm getting that that sweetness too,
but it's not like a caramel or a vanilla. Like it tastes a little bit like a mint candy.
So that's what I was saying. It's got an odd type of not spice, but it is a little bit more peppermint.
Which is funny because anyone who follows me on social media, I posted a couple pictures today where I actually put this bottle in the mint section of my garden. So you had mint leaves around the bottle, and come to find out, like, oh, it actually does. I don't think
it was sealed. Yeah,
it was sealed. I don't think that peppermint's getting
something in there.
I don't think the mint's getting through the glass.
Osmosis. But it does have that finish where it's a little bit. This is just observational. I'm not making an opinion on this. It's not, it's a bit of that. This is gonna sound so bad, and I like this. It's like I just rinse my mouth and gargle with Listerine. Seriously, that finish. Do you use Listerine?
Yes.
Which one? Don't tell me use that yellow bullshit that everyone likes. Like no one buys that.
That
do you? Yeah, but I mean, you don't like not the yellow.
No, I don't do the yellow. No, we got
looks
rid
like
of
it
that
went bad. Blue one, yeah. Like I like the
blue's
like
the one.
Mint or...
Blue's the one. The blue Listerine is the one that I have right now. Before that, it was the yellow that we had.
I feel like the yellow is you have to be a certain age, like old, to
like
buy
over
that.
60, like
easily
retired,
over 60,
like
maybe
AARP.
70. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how old. Ray, do you have? No, sorry. Got to give him shit every once in a while because he gives us shit. But I know you probably don't get that, but it's kind of that finish because Freddie Burt's asking, Ray says, cool mint, yeah. Is it a long finish? I think it is. It kind of sits back here with this being 111 or 110, 111.3. It hasn't really hit me down in that warm. It never really gets like the heat doesn't get past the throat, like the neck.
Yeah, it's a Kentucky choke.
Sounds like we're bashing this thing. It's actually good. I don't want to like come across. Yeah, it tastes like Listerine, and it's called the Kentucky choke. Like, it's fucking good. Selling this thing, put that on the bottle. Jesus. Yeah, cool mint Listerine finish. I like it. I mean, you're right, though. It does have a little bit of that sweetness. And again, as you sip a little bit, I was still on the first glass here. I am. I know, Nate, you kind of topped yours off a little bit. It's starting to mellow out.
Yeah.
And I haven't really been hitting the cigar a whole lot, which it's still going. If you just, as a side note, mine is still burning. And if you guys have been watching, I haven't really been puffing on it a whole lot. So that's nice. We'll get to that on the cigar. If you gave me shit, it must have been cut by the Vietnamese government. I heard nothing. That's the second thing you said about the Vietnamese government. I'm kind of concerned.
I was going to say, do we need to be worried about, right? Are they coming after you?
I'm getting emails.
Sean's saying smoke this cigar, which we haven't gotten into, and then take a sip. You think that makes the rye taste sweeter? What do you think of the rye, Sean? Get on the mic. I got the mic over there by you.
Yeah, I think it takes away. By the way, sorry, I agree with you, Sean. I just did it makes it a little lighter on the start there.
Yeah, you definitely feel it kind of in the throat area, but I mean that's not a bad thing. I'm just making fun of the whole Kentucky choke thing, but Steve started with Listerine, so I figure I could say it now. Anyway, no, it was good. It's sweet right off the bat, and then it does have a little bit of burn near the end. But when I did take a hit of the cigar and immediately took a sip, it definitely lightened it up, and you taste a lot more of the sweetness to it. So,
yeah, takes away the minty part. Yeah, the heat or mint.
Yeah, doing the cigar, then the whiskey, it almost made it come across like a little thicker on the palate. And it actually it took away a little bit of that sweetness, but it made it taste more bold, like the whiskey itself more bold. and it actually reminded me a little bit more of a Willet product. Doing
Okay.
that,
Okay.
Nice.
which of course is not a bad thing.
Just put on the screen for you guys and those that are listening to the podcast, not watching. Please drink responsibly. I feel like that's something that we should make a point, with the new year and all this stuff, and going into all the, the fourth year here soon. Gotta make sure that we're mentioning that as well. You hear about a lot of those after New Year's.
Yeah,
you hear of like everyone prepares for it, even if you're trying to be smart. Things happen, and so I hope you guys had a safe New Year's and continue to be safe this year.
That's why I didn't even have a cocktail or glass of wine at dinner. Like I had a pour at the shop of something I had taken in, because I wasn't working, and then had dinner, went home, and I did my drinking at home.
One of the reasons I do the podcast at my house. Plus, you don't have a garage to do it in.
I've got a 1-car garage.
Not gonna work.
No.
Be real tight. I like this.
With
I think
car in it.
With a car in it, I'm like, pull it out. Always pull out.
No,
No, I think with this bottle, it's good. It's unique. It's cool to hear the process of it. Obviously, they've done something here with that process that makes it a little bit more unique. I don't think
I mentioned it. I paid $64 for this bottle in Nashville.
Okay. Thank you very much for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm planning on heading down to Nashville here in about a month, so maybe I can find another one of their products.
Yeah.
That might be one I look for, is another King's Distillery.
Yeah, there you go.
And we can do another one next month or something, like, February, March. How much is it? Ray just said.
There's a little delay, so not going to give him too much shit.
I don't want to say anything about the Vietnamese government, but he keeps saying stuff, so we are definitely going to get flagged here. That's awesome. Bobby Hirschman says, Shannon back in the garage yet? Is Sean done eating his salad during the show? I don't think Sean's not eating a salad tonight, but Shannon is not here tonight. I hope he got back safely. We were hoping to see him, but I know he just went and saw Bobby Hirschman out in Philly, part of the Bourbon and BS community page. He was at the Mummers Parade.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I should tell you. So I got this on my trip to Nashville. I actually bought it in a little town, Franklin.
Yeah,
which is just
outside
south.
of it.
Yeah, just south of Nashville. So it's not in every liquor store, because I went to a couple. But then again, this one, the first one I went to was so massive, I wasn't looking for this. This one just happened to catch my eye. Like when I was at the show, I had it kind of narrowed down to 3 bottles I was thinking about getting.
Yeah.
And then the more I started looking at a couple, I was like, nah, that one's out of Illinois. No. And then I forget why I didn't pick the other one. But then when I saw that this one was Indiana, so MVP, I was like,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's not coming out of Starlight, so that kind of narrows it down.
Which we're out of those, aren't we?
Yeah. I think Sean killed the last of the.
We need to get more of that Starlight stuff.
Yeah. We have someone that goes there quite often, doesn't live too far away.
True. We need to go out there, though.
Well, yeah, we do.
Tonight, so we mentioned that we are smoking the Crux Guild with this, and Crux, first of all, it's a I'd say a family-run business. It's a company, and I hope to get our sales rep, who's actually part of the family, Tony, but the owner of it is Jeff. I think you say it Haugen, Haugen.
Okay.
Haugen. Forgive me if that's wrong. I've met Tony, but I forget. He's got the same last name, if I'm not mistaken. But they so this Jeff, the owner of Crux Cigars, he was, before he got into the tobacco industry, apparently he was going to try to get in. He's based out of Minnesota. And he's going to try to get in the hardware store business, and realized that it was going to be too much capital. It was too much time and all this stuff. So he was, basically, a story goes, he was in a cigar shop. He smoked basic stuff, nothing big. And he was in there, and in the story I read from Tobacco Business, which is a great magazine, did an interview with him not too long ago, so check them out. But so they did. He was in a store and saw a guy ring up for like $400 or $500, and he's like, I had no idea that you would see, basically sales of that amount.
Oh.
So he kind of started looking into it, started a cigar shop in the early 90s, a retailer. Minnesota's a really tough state as time has gone on with taxes and restrictions on all that stuff.
They're one of the worst when it comes to OTP tax.
Exactly. It was as high as 95% at one point.
It's currently 95% with a cap at $3.50.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Jake's tagging Tony on the
so when you think about it, like for those that are listening from Ohio, you take cigar prices at your brick and mortar shop here in Ohio, add about $3, and that's going to be the price you're going to pay in Minnesota.
Yeah. So Crux basically is kind of cool when he was he owned this shop, and I think he still does, if I'm not mistaken, but became close with the Plasencia family.
Mm-hmm.
So he would go when he decided to start looking into going into an actual like cigar manufacturer or cigar brand owner. He contacted Nestor Plasencia, and his son, Nestor's son, I guess, had even gone to their shop in Minnesota to train on the retail side and kind of see that side of things. And so then basically he was traveling back and forth very frequently to Nicaragua, to the Plasencia farm, learning more about it, working with the blends, working with the tobaccos, and founded in, I think it was 2014. Let's see if I can find this. Yeah, 2014, basically he named it Crux Cigars. Crux is a Latin word for cross. And so, I mean, that was kind of like he talking about the crossroads and kind of the different metaphors for that cross as far as what it meant with his life.
I remember running across those a couple times when I was on the road as a cigar rep.
Well, it looked a lot different.
In Chicago, I think it was. Oh, they had a completely different label. Same name, but completely different branding. Several years ago, I'd actually won one day a social media contest and ended up getting like a golf towel, some golf balls with their logo and stuff like that. Yeah, it's the old logo.
Yeah, the old logo. This is recent. The rebranding is definitely recent. Yeah. Really cleaned it up. It's all really like polished and very informative on all the packaging. Not only the boxes, they do the 5-count paper boxes as well of all the different blends. And so what we're smoking tonight is the Guild, which so at Tinder Box, where who's sponsoring us with this cigar, they've carried so far the Guild, the Epicure Maduro, and the Bull and Bear.
I had the Bull and Bear back when I was on the road.
Yeah. So this one is made at the Plasencia factory in Nicaragua. It's an Ecuadorian Habano wrapper with a Nicaraguan binder and filler.
Okay.
So it's obviously on paper, it's a blend that I would like typically, Ecuadorian Habano and Nicaraguan filler and binder.
Absolutely.
Love Plasencia. They do our BS Gold. Love that. Love their own stuff as well. Definitely on my top list for sure. But yeah, when they did this, it's got a nice orange band. It's unique. It's got kind of a cutout there in the label there. Crux on the back, Crux on the front with the 3 swords, and it says Guild. Nice packaging for sure.
Yeah,
very clean.
One of the original ones that I smoked from them back at my first shop I worked at, and they mailed us some samples. One was called Skeeter. I don't know if they still make. I don't believe that's
in the portfolio anymore.
I don't know if they still call it that.
They have a Limitada as well. It's really good. So yeah, kind of a cool thing. And like I said, Tony's part of the family. He's our rep, if you will. But I mean, he's out on the road and everything like that. We've talked about it. He listens to the podcast from time and again.
Casey is one of them as well.
Let's see where we got. I got all the information.
I think
here.
I follow most of them on Instagram. So
yeah, Casey is another one. So, and then they've got some other people obviously in the organization at this time, but they're growing. They're making a name for themselves. Obviously, in a short period of time, they've done pretty well for themselves. They're teaming up with some great companies like Plasencia for these things, and it seems to me that they're having a lot of fun with it. So that kind of comes through when you meet Tony, and I have not met anyone else from the organization so far. What do you think of this cigar, though, Nate?
It's enjoyable. This is the first one I've smoked.
You said you had not smoked the Guild.
Yeah, unless it was called something else before they rebranded, but it'd been so long I wouldn't be able to remember.
They had a Guild with the old band and all that packaging.
Okay, I may have smoked one. I'd have to wait for Facebook memories to pop up. But no, I've not smoked this one. I've smoked the Bull and Bear, which was the first to sell out. And that's, I think, their most popular.
I don't know if it is. I know it was at Tinder Box for sure.
Smoked that and the Epicure. So I'm glad that when you said, yeah, I picked the Crux, I'm like, which one? And it was one I hadn't smoked. But yeah. But no, it is. Someone had asked about the draw. The draw is very smooth, not tight, not too airy, just very easy, smooth draw. A lot of smoke coming off of it. You had commented earlier while I was talking about the whiskey, like you had gone a little while between puffs and it was still burning.
Yeah.
So yeah, no construction issues on it. What's this coming in at?
It's around 11 or so. Let me see if I can see what the suggested is. This is going back, obviously, to they launched this one originally in 2015. Let me see if this. I don't know if
this kind of reminds me.
It's gone up. I mean, from 2015, which makes sense. I mean, obviously prices were different, but I mean, it's around that 10 or so. It's average price, I'd say. Yeah.
I would say most cigars nowadays are going to be in that $10 to $13 price point.
And that's where this is landing.
Yeah. Now you're probably going to disagree with me a little bit on this, but that's fine.
Here we go.
The way my palate is, like, this almost comes across a little bit like a Cameroon for me.
Why?
Just it has this very earthy taste to it. Like a lot of times if I'm smoking a Habano, I get like a little more nuttiness or leather out of it. This, I get more of an earthy taste, which is what I get out of Cameroon. I actually happen to really enjoy Cameroon, so that's not a negative from me.
Yeah. For this one, I can see that because I was going to say, again, I'm not trying to come across negative by any means, but when you say that, I can see what you're saying because it's kind of got this like dry, quick finish, a little bitey. But that might be that earthiness, like you're talking about, where you're right. Some people really like it, some people don't. I think it's not like over the top on this one, but it does kind of have a quick, sharp finish on it. And again, on paper, Ecuadorian Habano, Nicaraguan binder filler, this isn't what I would expect with it. But obviously, you can do a lot of different things.
Well, when they say Nicaraguan filler and binder, there's a lot of things that can be. There's a lot of combinations. And then you also different regions, different seed strains, and then different leaves on the plant.
Right.
So there's a lot of possible combinations that you can do just with Nicaraguan filler and binder.
For sure.
Ecuadorian Habano, for the most part, we know what Ecuadorian Habano characteristics tend to be.
Yeah.
So, but again, who knows what's inside? And obviously Plasencia, with as many cigars they make, not only for themselves, but for
how much tobacco they have,
other labels. They have a lot of tobacco.
Yeah.
They're not going to make something under someone else's name that's also on another company's name. They're not going to make the same cigar twice for two different people or themselves. So they have to do something a little bit different. So
here's what I like about Crux too. So I remember seeing them when I was in Vegas for the one trade show that we went to. That would have been 2016, 2015. I don't know. They were still newer. So that was one where I saw their booth. It's like, oh, these guys are new, boutique company. And I, at the time, didn't really do a whole lot of research on it. We didn't really talk to them a whole lot. I forget who was distributing them at the time. It was not, I think they were working through a broker rep. And I may be mistaken, but I believe that's what they were doing. And I didn't really pay much attention to it. Didn't know, because
I think they've built
this branding with this compared to what it was. I think this is more polished. I think it was a great move because I'm even like pulling up the original. That's what you were looking at here. It's got some similarities, but the Crux, as opposed to being this really polished, and you can look at the picture on the podcast, Instagram and Facebook, but instead of having this really polished, the Crux is horizontal above it. It's got a unique.
It was almost like an old English.
It was, and so it was also along the cigar too. It wasn't like a Camacho or like really bold or anything, but it was along the cigar in a very Old English, kind of a calligraphy type
Yeah.
of a font, and the X on it was like a cross. It was like a like crucifix basically, and so they're really going off of that. It kind of, for cigar smokers out there, it was almost like it was gimmicky. It was a little like Gurkha-esque on some of their stuff, if you will. You know what I mean? When I say Gurkha-esque, I like some of the Gurkha products. I'm not talking bad about their marketing, but they go big on the certain things like the assassin, the ninja, like all that stuff. You know what I mean? So I kind of like, it reminded me of that. I'm like, oh, this, it's, again, I don't know why I feel like I'm sounding mean, but it's like, it was kind of like, oh, that's cute. You know what I mean? It was like, I get it. It's gimmicky and all that stuff. This is like kind of, they grew up with their marketing.
Yeah.
And I think it really, if I would have seen that at the time, I would have been like, these guys just have money. You know what I mean? They felt like they want to do cigars, because that's what this is like portraying to me, is like a very clean look to it.
Yeah.
Obviously, then if you find out that they're utilizing and working with the relationship they have with Plasencia, now like, oh, now I'm really interested. I'm pretty sure we would have stopped and spent more time at their booth 6 years ago, whatever it was, 6-7 years ago, if we knew that.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that's
think
great.
also,
so I think they've done a great job building their brand, and I love seeing that.
I think I have followed them on social media for probably about 5 or 6 years, and I think that's, I don't know, I'm just from my side of the business, I think that's how they've done a lot of their growth, is through social media and just getting the word out there just over and over, and that's how they built it up.
Well, and then now you have Tony and others on the road. It was funny. I was actually sitting at Fido, and mentioned that earlier, the pub next door from Tinder Box. We were sitting outside. Dude walks up. I was sitting there having a drink. We weren't closed, but it was just kind of like, it was a summer evening or something like that, spring or summer evening. Nice night. Guy walks up in a Crux shirt or whatever, and he just like kind of walks up to me. Apparently, he had seen the podcast at some point, through social media, and he's like, "Hey, just want to stop by. I don't know if you're working later or what." And he was kind of just in passing, just hitting accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was kind of cool to see that he just stopped by, and then he did come back through. He's going to come back through again. It's kind of a nice presence there. And he's the type of person there that I love seeing, that when, especially if you're part of the family that runs the company, you're that close. It's pretty sharp. I mean, he knew Brian's name. He knew my name he knew the podcast. He like kind of knew all this.
So he'd done some research before
he
showing
things up. I mean, I
that's
think
a smart salesman.
We try to do our best at Tinder Box, and then obviously through the podcast over the last few years of making a name for ourselves in the industry to a certain extent. But it was cool that he did his research, and I think he seemed to be the kind of guy that does what he can to figure out the accounts before he walks in there blindly and just is like, "Hey, I'm slinging cigars. What's your name?"
Oh yeah,
which does happen in the cigar industry and others.
Yeah, that's one thing I was thankful for when I was a cigar rep, was I at least had documents. I had an entire folder for each state. Like, here's the account, here's who owns the shop, here's the decision maker's name, here's all their contact info.
Yeah.
Like, I had that information, so that way I wasn't one of those reps that comes in and goes, "Hi, are you the owner?" Like, no, I'm just a part-time guy that works here. Like,
just smoke cigars and sell them. It's cool.
Yeah. Well, obviously, when you're in that position, like your initial visit or two, you got to spend time with the guy that's writing the check.
You try to, yeah.
You can pass out cigars to the guys working there all you want, or ladies, all you want, because those are the ones that are going to sell your cigar to customers.
Yeah.
But you at least got to get your cigar in there first. So you got to talk to the guy with the checkbook.
Yeah, you want to get in front of that person, obviously, in any sales, for sure. So with this cigar, the one I'm smoking, the wrapper looks good. It's not the smoothest. I don't know how yours is. Yours looks a little bit smoother, actually. But as you can see on mine, you got a little bit of, got a little bit. So it's not like the prettiest wrapper leaf on there.
Well, coming out of Plasencia, when you're talking about the prettiest wrapper leaf, like, you're talking about a cigar that may be $15 and $20.
That's what I'm saying, right? So this isn't the prettiest. I think it falls into what you're looking at as far as price. Mentioned and talked in depth a little bit about the marketing behind it, the branding. I think it's great. The draw is fantastic. The construction seems great. Like I said, when I set it down, we were talking about it, and it just kind of kept burning. Glenn Heiss says, is the flavor and temperature staying consistent as you finish? Yeah, I mean, construction-wise, this cigar is smoking very well, in my opinion. So that's not even an issue by any means. This is, and not that there is an issue. It's just, I think, Nate, based on what you said, it doesn't list it as Cameroon, but I mean, it definitely has that finish there. But at the end of the draw, and maybe it's also partly because we're drinking this Ryeconic from King's Family Distillery. It's a little bitey for me at times.
Okay.
But that might be the Listerine finish of the the whiskey.
Yeah, to Glenn's question, I think the flavor on this cigar is very consistent all the way through.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily a complex smoke that's going to change as you go through it.
Yeah.
Because I'm about halfway done, but it's just been a very consistent flavor the whole way through.
Yeah.
And that's, some people like that. Some people like cigars with complexity. And until you smoke a cigar, you never know, is it going to change? Is it going to be the same flavor throughout? You don't know.
Right.
But yeah, it has that same flavor profile so far through the first half of the cigar. Which reminds me, I had a customer, just sidebar, had a customer come in the other day. He goes, I was like, help you find anything? He goes, yeah, I don't really like cigars that have a white pepper taste the last third. That is oddly specific, but okay.
It's very, at least he knows what he's looking for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dario says, late to the show, I assume he said. What cigar and bourbon? Just Crux Guild and King's Family Distillery Ryeconic.
Batch 4.
Batch 4. Ray says, is it a bit chilly? Yeah, it is.
It's 28 degrees, Ray, and there's not a cloud in the sky.
Definitely dropped. We're now into winter. We've got the heater going, got it on the low so we don't pass out from propane fumes. Sean has pants on, which we appreciate.
Always.
Hate it when he sits in here without pants. It's weird.
And
I try to look at the camera more when he's doing that.
Yeah.
Don't look directly at it. I don't know what to do with my eyes or hands.
Just focus.
That's right. Let's do one of these things. Like, all right, welcome back.
So I know earlier when we were doing the whiskey and Sean was talking, he talked about going cigar to whiskey. Have you gone whiskey to cigar?
Sure, I will.
Because one of the things, so when we talked about that, and it kind of goes with what you were saying, Steve, how this cigar, you kind of feel dries out your palate a little bit. I think that's one of the reasons why then this whiskey comes across a little heavier, is because now your palate's a little dry. And so this whiskey is like the first thing that comes and like wets your palate.
Yeah, going the other way is not as enjoyable for me.
Okay.
Whiskey to cigar.
Explain why while I do that.
No, I just went dead air. Go ahead. No, it's because I'm still getting that kind of minty, maybe a hint of cinnamon like finish. So it's kind of like, I don't know. It like the reason I brought up the Listerine thing is it's not a negative. It's not like it's not taste like Listerine, but it has that kind of finish when you just finish brushing your teeth, you use some Listerine, and then you go do anything. You eat anything. You sip
Orange
on something. Definitely not orange juice, but anything really. It throws off your palate big time because I can't get this finish out of here right now. So when I'm going back to the cigar, maybe that's kind of where that quick finish of almost like a little bitey is coming from. It's not necessarily the cigar itself. I haven't smoked one of these in probably a month or two, and I can't recall exactly how it finished, but I think that might be part of my comments and review on the cigar.
So when I went from this rye to the cigar,
yeah,
I actually got kind of this citrus and mint together note, like a citrus Listerine almost.
One you never want. You just don't get it, man. I don't know why you'd want that as your morning finish of your routine. Just don't. Is that better with orange juice? I think it would be maybe a little bit better.
I don't know about that, but
shut that door. It's all right.
That happened, but no, yeah, I definitely think as we've gone both ways, doing cigar.
Don't say that.
doing the cigar, then the whiskey made the whiskey taste a lot better.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but it changed the flavor up a little bit.
Correct.
Going whiskey and then cigar, like it didn't necessarily do anything positive for the cigar, and it kind of made the finish of the whiskey taste a little different.
I agree. So that's a good comment on as far as how, you know, the pairing when you're doing these things, you know, when you have that from a whiskey to a cigar to whiskey, the order does actually change the way you're having it. I think that goes with it, you know, when you're eating dinner or you know, it's like the sides go with it. Sometimes, you know, I'll take, you know, if I'm eating like a steak with potatoes and a veggie or whatever, sometimes I literally will like eat like a little, all three of them all like on the same bite. And that's good. Other times it's not so good.
I had a friend comment about my steak and wine Sunday post that I do.
Yeah.
Cause like you're always doing steak and green beans.
You do the same thing every week.
Every now and then, like we may do broccoli or asparagus, but typically it's steak and green beans, because now at this point it's like a science experiment. The only thing that is different is the wine. So how does the wine change from each week, you know, with those two dishes? Because we know what those two dishes are like by themselves, and we've had them with other wines. So now we're just, the only variable is the wine. And sometimes that changes how it tastes with different foods. The one we had this week, for example, the wine by itself, it was okay. With green beans, fantastic. With steak, not so much. So it was like better with green beans than by itself or with steak. So that's the I mean, you got to remember, my wife and I are both science nerds. So
oh, we remember.
Okay. Just
no.
Yeah. Well, I do potatoes for breakfast.
No, it's the same steak, green beans, different wine.
Pretty much, for the most part.
Every time. Which, I mean, if that's what you guys like, I think it's great. I try to switch it up a little bit with the veggies. And then whatever massive steak I can get my hands on.
Yeah, whatever 20 to 24 ounce steak you can find.
What do we got?
Jody Jack says she loves the steak and green bean sundae.
See, and that's what it is.
Steak and wine sundae.
No, it's not. It's steak and green beans with a side of wine. Ray, so when we're talking about the whiskey, the pairing, like you're talking about, the kind of experiment, if you will, Ray's asking also, the temperature differences must change the flavor of a cigar. If you smoke the same cigar in the summer versus the winter, do you see a difference? I'll say yes. There is something that I did learn, and you guys might as well. If you're on vacation, say you don't live in a warmer climate or whatever, or even if you do, like if you live in the Midwest, for example, this is a great example, and you go down to like Vegas or Florida or somewhere else, and you're near the beach, you're in a different climate, different country, whatever, and then you smoke that cigar there. Yeah. And I'm not even including the vacation vibe and all that stuff, making everything a little bit better. I'm talking about just smoking that cigar there. And I haven't tried it as much with like whiskeys as much, but then you go back to your own climate, if you will, smoking that, there will be some differences. It may be minor on some of them, might be a very significant. You might really love the cigar when you're down, say in Miami, and you get back to Ohio and you're like, I don't think I like the cigar anymore, because it will change it. When we were blending the BS Silver,
that's what I was going to bring up. Yeah, absolutely.
What? Good.
Do you think it could be too the fact, like when you're down in Florida, there's a lot more like a more humidity level, where in the wintertime it's a lot drier around here? I think it has a lot to do with it.
So I think that affects everything, right, in your body. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and to Ray's question, I think Steve was very specific when he was talking about the weather, not the atmosphere. When you talk about like going on vacation and, you know, all the drinks and like you're just having it, like you talked about that with one of your friends that bought a box of Cubans on a beach in Mexico, and they were $2 a piece, and he's like, this is the greatest cigar ever. Yeah, you're also hammered.
Yeah, he was high too. But no, for me, like I was gonna say, when we were blending the BS Silver with Espinosa, Eric, and then Hector, who was on the show, right? We came up with, like, say our top, whatever it was, 3 or 4 different blends. And Eric even said, like, well, before like we make any changes or we make any decisions on anything, make sure you go back, and it basically gave us, you know, some of the samples of those cigars to take back to Ohio, smoke them here, you know, and see what we thought.
Yeah.
And, they did taste a little different. Again, then you factor in the fact that night we were also drinking and eating and doing all that stuff, which,
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So there is to Ray. Yeah. I think it does change the way things taste, not just cigars, but there are a lot of different things I think will taste differently. Much like if we kind of joke about like drinking a really like high proof rye or whatever on a 90-degree day versus on a day like today, where you might drink the same thing, sip on it, and just because your body is firing differently and the atmosphere is different, the climate's different, you will enjoy it or not enjoy it based on that type of a thing.
Well,
I find that quite a bit, and I think that's just the way it is. Like a lighter whiskey, a weeded bourbon or something like that is a little bit lighter, lower proof, sweeter, what have you. That's definitely going to hit better, I think, in a hotter climate or hotter temperature.
Like I think something like the Bua Irish whiskey that we featured on here.
Yeah.
That is a great summertime whiskey. It's Irish whiskey, but it's so light and complex. It's great for the summertime. But then there was that one episode in year one where you guys did the Booker's Backyard Barbecue.
Yeah.
And the Oliva V when it was 90 degrees.
It was just too much.
It was too much. Like, it's too hot because that cigar is so strong. Like, you could smoke that cigar in the summertime, but pairing it with a whiskey that's almost 130 proof, like that's not a summer whiskey. 130 proof's a little much because you're going to feel that. It's going to be warm. It's going to be hot.
I agree.
And it's already hot outside. Like, yeah, sometimes you do change up what you drink or smoke with the seasons.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Dario says dark chocolate or almonds will clean your palate. Yeah, there are different ways you can clean your palate that definitely help out. That's just, he also says Crux are great cigars. And so, yeah, Dario, thanks for tuning in tonight. We appreciate that. Keep the comments coming if you have any questions for us as well. Or if you guys have any questions, say you're listening to the audio as well, and you're listening, you can always shoot a message to the Bourbon and BS podcast on social media, Bourbon and BS podcast @gmail.com. If you want to send an email, if you still do that, I don't know. Most people just message anymore. But you can message Nate or I. You can message the podcast. You can get on the community page and put that out there as well. Go ahead and give that door a real nice tug when you go in. Hey, all right.
Attaboy.
Nice. Got your big boy pants on for sure. This is the time where, as we round out, if you guys don't have any other questions right now, we're going to do the rating. We round it out with the whiskey, cigar, and the pairing. So 3 ratings. If you guys are new to the show, out of 10 being the best. And Sean, do you want to give yours? Sean has kind of become the audience reviewer on most weeks because he is the consistent audience member, which we appreciate the live feedback here.
It helps,
especially when you're wearing pants.
Yeah.
Notice how they're all looking at me now.
Yeah. Still in the eye. I just don't want
to. Yeah, I think with the whiskey, I would say by itself, I'm going to give it a 7.5. I don't think it's okay, but I think I'll go to the cigar and I'll explain the whiskey in a minute. Cigar, I'm going to give that an 8.5. I really enjoy it. It's pretty good retro ale. Pretty easy smoke.
We didn't talk about that at all. The retro ale. Yeah, so it's just very nice. For me, it's kind of a more mellow cigar, not as strong.
I'd say medium.
Yeah, it's not that. I mean, it's not light, but it's not like peppery or anything like that either. But yeah, did I say 8.5 cigar? I can't remember.
You said 8.5.
8.5. Okay. The combo, put them together. If you do it smoke then drink, I'm going to give it another 8.5.
Okay.
I think that makes a world of difference with this bottle in particular and the cigar. I think they pair very well together. So that's what I got.
That's what he got. Nate?
So I'm going to be a little different than Sean.
Typical.
Thank God.
Expected.
I really enjoyed this whiskey. Very pleasant. I think even at 111 proof, as smooth as this is, like this could be something that you could drink in the summertime. And typically we don't do that with ryes. I know after that,
right.
I know after that first year of the podcast, you and Jake had a rule you don't drink ryes if it's over 50.
Try not to. We've definitely broken that rule. several times.
Yeah,
which is fine.
I think this is one that even at 111 proof and that nice caramel color that we didn't talk about, like this is something that is smooth enough to drink even during the summertime. I really like it. I'm going to give the whiskey a 9.
There it is.
I really, really enjoy this whiskey. On the cigar,
We just got an ooh out of the audience.
and it wasn't
tried
Sean.
that. 10.
Ting.
Didn't gag. Raving review from the audience there.
Yeah,
I give it a 10. I did not gag. Good. High standards.
Oh, wow. All right.
Go on.
On the cigar, I'm going to give the cigar a 7, which for anyone who knows me, that's still a solid score. Like it is an enjoyable cigar, nice medium body. It has a good flavor. I agree with you, Steve, that it does kind of have a dryness to it.
Yeah.
Which typically in a cigar, like that's not something I necessarily enjoy in a cigar. But it still has a nice flavor, great construction, great burn. It's a solid smoke. And for me, 7 is a solid score on a cigar.
9 and a 7. So how does it pair?
As far as the pairing, kind of like what Sean talked about, I think it does matter which order you go. If I'm going cigar and then the whiskey, I give that pairing a 9 because it does change the flavor a little bit of the whiskey. It takes a little bit of the heat out of it, but it kind of makes it have a thicker mouthfeel to it.
Yeah.
Going whiskey and then cigar, like that's that citrus Listerine type flavor that we talked about.
My favorite.
Like going whiskey and cigar, like that's more like a 6. Going cigar and then whiskey, that's more of a 9. So knowing that I have a preference to those, I'll give the pairing an 8.5.
Okay. What'd you have, Sean?
I do want to say real quick.
Wait.
On the retro hail, I just got some floral notes too.
Okay.
It's really
Nice retro.
Yeah, good retro.
Good retro.
Not too much spice.
Whiskey, I'm gonna give 8.5. I think it's good. It's unique. It's kind of a fun bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about like I mentioned and it's kind of carried on through this part 1 of the Listerine type of it's got that kind of minty finish.
Mm-hmm.
Not the typical spice that I would recommend. Like I'd expect from a rye mash bill, even with the second barreling for a year. It's good, 8.5. So I think it's definitely worth checking out. I think it's unique enough also that you guys won't be disappointed. Again, coming in at north of $60 where Nate got this.
It's when you think about it, like if you remember, I made a lot of similarities or comparisons to Willet. Same bottle, it's 4-year MGP rye, same mash bill as what Willet was when it was coming out of MGP. It's the same price point as well.
But see that when you say that though, I'm going to go Willet.
I know
every day of the week over
I
this.
get that. Part of me wants to save some of this because I have a 4-year Willet
It's your
at
bottle.
home.
You can do that, yeah.
I want to save some of this, take it home, and maybe if you ever come over to my house, do like a blind
burn.
Do like a blind taste between the two.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of whiskeys at home that I'm like,
as long as I can get some of those green beans, you know what I mean?
Hey, any Sunday, you're more than welcome to come over.
I'm gonna need like 3 of those steaks. So. They look good. They're just small. Or I just need a lot of green beans. Either way. I eat big portions.
We can pick up a separate steak just for you, Steve.
I'll bring it. No. So yeah, cigar 8. I think this, it's a good cigar. It's not my favorite from Crux. The construction is fantastic. The flavor is not my favorite, but it's good. The cigar is well done. You know what I mean? It's just it's different, but I can appreciate the fact that it is more of a unique flavor profile based on what's on paper, being that Ecuadorian Habano / Nicaraguan. So I do like it. And again, I will compliment them again. I think the branding change that they did it stands out. I think the boxes would stand out in a walk-in if you have those 5-count paper boxes. At first, a couple years ago, I'd be like, what are they doing with this? This looks cheap. Davidoff does it. Cohiba's doing it. Like, I mean, like the big boy brands are doing these 4 or 5-count box, like paper boxes, sets. And it's, I still don't really get it, but it seems to work.
Well,
it makes me nervous when you have, I mean, these coming in around that $10-ish mark, 5 of them, $50 sitting there retail, right? That kind of makes me nervous because they're not really secure. You look at like the guys that are, you know, Davidoff and Cohiba, you're putting $30 cigars in there. So, you know, in a 4 or 5 pack, you're looking at well over $100 in those packs. It's working for them, I guess, you know, and the, like, I think of like the Cohiba Royale, you can either get it in this really high-end dress box.
Oh, that box is ridiculous.
I think it's only 10 cigars. It's like on an arch.
But the box is big enough to hold like 40.
Right. And we talked to Sean about that, Sean Williams about that.
Yeah.
But you get them in the pack. So they're doing great things. I think they're taking cues from some of the industry leaders with some of this stuff. So kudos to them. So I think that's great. Pairing, not my favorite pairing. I think these would pair better with other products both ways. I'd give the pairing a 7.5. Yeah, not my favorite.
I'm actually surprised that
like cottonmouth right now.
I'm actually surprised with as medium body as this cigar is. Like if you'd have told, like when you told me before we started the podcast that this is what we were smoking, and I knew this was a more medium bodied cigar, I thought that the whiskey was going to overpower this cigar too much. And I don't think it has.
It hasn't. No, it hasn't. I just think they're better on their own. I think it's, like I said, we could, now that we know, and you've smoked the cigar now, we know that bottle, we could probably pair it a little bit better. I'm not going to go down a list of what I think. The Upman Nicaragua that we are going to be smoking in part 2, I think we probably pair a little bit better with the bottle myself. But, you know, we might get to that point. We might not. That being said, thank you guys. Part 1, episode 202. Happy New Year. I want to give a shout out to you guys on Patreon, patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast. You guys are fantastic. You keep this thing going every month. We're able to get a bit of funds. We hope you guys, if you're enjoying the show, you guys join that group. It also gets you a discount on the t-shirts and the other stuff coming out. The hoodies at buyjack.com/bourbonandbs. That'll give you a certain page to go to and a code to put in so you can get a discount on all those as well. So that's great. I did have a new Patreon member. I got to look and see if they're staying on or if it was a one-time $25. But I'm going to look at who that is. It was just an email address. I need to contact them and see if they are interested in a shirt that I can send them.
I was gonna ask you, like, if new Patreon members join, like, do they still get the free T-shirt for so many months?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. So, and if you are part of that and you have not received, I know a lot of them, we kind of gave them out to the people that were Patreon members local, and we tried to get them out to them. But if you guys haven't received that yet, just shoot me a message on the podcast and we'll make that right with you guys. So we've got some raffle prizes. This last year has been crazy just for everyone. We apologize. We haven't gotten them out. My garage is now filled with boxes that we have to send out all this stuff. And we've got some really cool swag from Josh Bentley and Maltidus for some more raffle prizes as we get into this year.
Maybe we should mail the other stuff out first before we start doing those raffle prizes.
All right. Don't get smart here.
No,
I'm just kidding.
I can help you out. I can help you out with that.
Yeah, we've been doing this a while. Tinder Box at Easton for the Crux. Thank you very much. Altidus USA. If you guys are in the Columbus area, check out Tinder Box at Easton. They also ship. So if you need to do that, you want to try something that we feature on the podcast, hopefully there's enough in inventory that we can send stuff to you at Tinder Box at Easton. But if you are in the Columbus area, you're in Easton, great retail area. It's fantastic to spend some time. Great restaurants, stores, and obviously great cigar shop that you guys can hang out and have a cigar while you're in town or if you're in the area. Altidus USA, like I said, thanks, Josh. BS Cigar Company, gold and silver are available. Now the golds come in 20-count boxes as well as bundles. We're really happy about those boxes. White boxes, good look to them. Soon the silvers will be, hopefully this year, also coming in boxes. And we're looking at doing purple boxes, which I think would look pretty cool. I think it'd be really sharp and they would stand out for sure. Venmo at Bourbon and BS if you guys want to shoot us a donation to the show for a bottle. You can even put in the memo what you'd like us to buy as long as we can get our hands on it, and we'll communicate with you through that as well. So you guys are fantastic. Thank you very much. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Happy New Year. Stay tuned for part 2. If you're listening live, do a quick intermission. If you're listening to the audio, click over to part 2 of episode 202, and we'll be talking about winter is coming and what that means literally and figuratively. So thanks, guys. Cheers. Have a great week. I need to soundproof Tony's room, not so we can't hear him, but he can't hear us. Because he's cool, and the door opens. It's like, whoa, 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 and he barks forever. As soon as he lays back down, someone goes back in the house. So like he'll hear us talking or something like that. So
I think it's funny when you were talking about these coming in those 5-count paper boxes. I remember the last time I was in the shop and our Davidoff rep came in, which you had mentioned, like Davidoff does a lot of the 4-packs.
Van Burris from Davidoff, yeah,
exactly, great guy,
fantastic,
one of the best in the business.
Agreed.
He was sitting down with Brian. This was a few months ago, but Davidoff was having issues with like some of the Camachos and other products of theirs, Avo and whatnot, of getting some of the wooden boxes.
Yeah,
and so Tinder Box doesn't have the boxes on the shelves; they do the bins.
Right.
So he's like, well, do you have them in bundles? And Dan's like, yeah, I got these in bundles. I got these in bundles. He's like, ship them to me in bundles.
Send them.
I don't need the boxes because those are just going to go in the back corner of the shop and people are going to take them. Like, just send me the bundles. If you got bundles of what I need, send them to me like that.
It's nice to have the boxes for stacking. Bundles are not as fun. With Tinder Box, with the BS Cigar Company as well, all in one, if you will. When we get 400 bundles and have to stack those, it's kind of, I don't say nightmare, but you worry about the pressure from how high you stack those. You got pressure on those cigars in a humidified area. So, you don't want that. We had one shipment we were kind of worried about where we had them stacked. We were stacking them, on their sides.
Mm-hmm. Some of the cigars got a little flat on one side.
Yeah, but I mean, so it's just that is part of it too. It's nice, obviously, and also in shipping purposes, in a box, you've got another layer of protection so you don't have many cracked cigars. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you. You ready to go?
Yeah.
Can't decide if I need to take a piss, so we'll see how this goes.
Better now than like midway during part 2.
Find out, man. You're gonna be solo. Sean will tag in.
I know.
And I won't get my seat back. It'll be awkward. Then I have to sit out there.
It's better to do it now while
it's pants off.
It's better to do it now when it's not on the audio and it's just the Facebook Live bonus footage.
I'm gonna be quick. I just go in the corner out here. It's an ice bucket.
You just have to make sure you set me up with a question or something I can talk about. It's that way I'm not just rambling on.
Why am I pissing in the garage?
And we're gonna
go.
And we're gonna turn the.
Just carry the mic with me.
We're gonna turn the.
I'm still with you guys.
We're gonna turn the laptop so that way it stays on Steve. No,
one wants to see that.
Sean, no one wants to see that. Put your shirt down.
Can we
please shut the
door?
For fuck's sake. I know it wasn't you, but for fuck's sake.
I mean, and Tony's barking again. Fantastic. He just laid down.
Fucking awkward, bud.
All right. It's a fun one. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 202, part 2. Happy New Year, Beyond the BS. Quick sponsorship shout out for those listening to the audio. And if you haven't listened to part 1 of episode 202, we did drink and still are sipping on King's Family Distillery Ryeconic, twice barreled, straight rye whiskey, aged 5 years, 111.3 proof. Thank you, Nate, for bringing that from Nashville.
You're welcome.
It's a Tennessee product distilled in Indiana.
Yes.
For
right now, yeah.
Right now.
Their regular rye product is a 51% rye, so that's coming out of their I think coming out of their distillery, so they're just waiting on age of their stuff.
Right. Well, they started in 2018. You throw in, a minor pandemic in there. Things get backed up. Not to make light of the pandemic. I'm sorry. Jeez, I get hate mail here. Sorry, Ray. Just kidding. Trying to keep it light. We smoked the Crux Cigars. Thanks to Tinder Box at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. Check them out on social media, and also if you're in the Columbus area, but they do ship about once a week if you need anything. It's great to support your local, shop local, your local cigar brick and mortar. But if you aren't near one, you want to support one, we would like to be your foster brick and mortar. You can adopt us as your local brick and mortar if you're somewhere else. Also, Altidus USA. Thank you very much, Josh Bentley. We've got some great raffle prizes that we'll be doing throughout this year. Hopefully some more. It's just great support from them. We've got a new banner behind us. A little shiny because it's the way we hung it, but you can still see Monte Cristo, Romeo y Julieta, H. Upman, Aging Room. We're going to be smoking an H. Upman, Nicaragua by AJ Fernandez. And as soon as I'm done with the Crux, but it's burning nicely for sure. Thank you to those guys. BS Cigar Company. Gold and silver are available. Thank you very much for the support there. Buyjack.com/bourbonbs for your shirts. We've got some blue hoodies that hopefully we'll be getting on there in the next month so we can keep you warm as winter is really hitting, which is winter is coming, is the topic tonight, which we're just going to be talking about hoodies that you can buy. There's more to it than that. Patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast or Venmo @bourbonbs. If you guys do the Patreon thing, you will get a code and a special website on buyjack.com/something else, and you'll get discounts on all the apparel. And we will be pulling down that pink charity shirt, and we'll be going a different direction. We talked about doing something for St. Baldrick's as we get closer to Patty's Day, which is another big time for not only St. Baldrick's Day, St. Patrick's Day, but also the Smoking Tent event.
Yoo-hoo.
That process has been started. Hopefully we will have news on that for you guys in the area. We have people coming from different states as well for that event. We're trying to make it as big as possible and roll with any of the obvious things that may be arising as we get through this part of the year and COVID restrictions. So stay tuned for all that stuff. We'll be keeping you guys updated on that as well. Winter is coming. So we just had New Year's. I talked briefly about the shit show of options to watch on TV, which is a great commentary of where we're at in this world, in this country at least, of how you want to ring in the new year after 2 years of this pandemic. And the seasons are changing, and people are still losing their shit about a lot of things, and rightfully so for some things. People are coming back. The kids are coming back to school. I was watching the news. You have kids now, they're going back to remote learning. You've got, we have, if you guys aren't local, OSU here in Columbus, Ohio, they've got new policies that they're putting back into place and things like that. All of these changes are coming, whether we like it or not. And I think, on the literal standpoint, with winter is coming, one of the things I wanted to talk about, which I never really watched much of Game of Thrones, but I guess that was a thing. Winter is coming. Jon Snow, right? I don't know if it's related or not, but Jon Snow's a character. I assume it was related. It probably isn't. If anyone out there watched Game of Thrones, throw us a bone on that. I really should have done a little research on that one. But it's just a name. Winter is coming. As we get into this, we've talked about different things, right? With, as you get in the colder, the seasonal depression is a big thing. This year, for sure, once again, they're talking, thank God, finally more and more about mental health and how not only is it important this time of the year with seasonal depression, but with the pandemic as we're still in it and how that's affected everyone. You talk about it's easy to just kind of hole up, hibernate. You go to work, if you will. You're not even going to work. You stay in your house, Nate, and you work from there. A lot of people are working from home. So I haven't heard many people talk about that, but it's one of those things all right, at least you get out in the somewhat daylight, but maybe it's dark when you go into the office or your job and it's dark when you get out. No, you just stay at home the whole day still. So it's this is really going to be an interesting winter again, I think, for a lot of people that somewhat out of your control. You really, if you're working from home, you're not leaving the house. which is scary as shit to me, as far as from the mental aspect and the mental health aspect. I think this is something that if you're not leaving the house, it's harder to go. If you don't exercise at home, you can't go exercise. We see this happening now also with certain cities not locking down, but having new restrictions at gyms. I mean, there's so much that goes into before all of this. When winter hits in wherever you're at, it changes your just overall personality. A lot of times you really have to push harder. When it's a beautiful spring or summer day, you want to get outside. You at least want to look out the window. But when it's kind of nasty gray and, it's dark still, like later in the morning, and then it's dark earlier in the evening, it's like, just weighs you down. You're binge watching shit. You're not eating. You're eating the comfort foods. You know what I mean? You're sitting inside. If you got snacks, you're killing down snacks like all the time. You're doing all this stuff that is not good for you. And then I think about like being, a homeowner. If you like, I still need to try to disconnect my hoses, which is probably too late already. I mean, it's probably starting to freeze. You know what I mean? You haven't done that, have you? Yeah. So I mean, like those types of things, you really have to think about that. You got to wash your car, even though you don't want to, because it's just going to get dirty and more salt on it. It's like, well, if you don't do it, you got to keep that up. It's like this routine that some people love the snow. Some people like doing the outdoor activities in the snow, but I have a feeling, and I'm interested to hear from the audience if you guys want to comment. Are you a winter person? Are you more of like a spring, summer? Do you try to take vacations to get away from it? Do you find that it does change kind of who you are on a day-to-day basis, and you're just biding your time until you get to the warmer weather? You finally, the days are getting longer again. It feels like there's literally like light at the end of the tunnel, like sunnier days and all this stuff. You can get outside, you're not freezing, you're not layering up. I mean, Nate, I know you're making a comment to someone on the feed, which I appreciate, like you guys communicating through the feed as we do this live. But I mean, how does this affect you, Nate? Because I can go for quite some time on this if I needed to monologue this, but I want to get people involved. Sean, I know you're in the audience still. You got a mic out there, and you guys in the audience on the live feed, please comment on this.
So
getting all your comments.
The whole change into winter thing typically has not been an issue for me.
Okay.
Prior to the pandemic, even when it was wintertime, I was still walking to work. And even though it'd be dark when I was walking to work, like that walk to work, that was still getting outside, being active, doing something. It was about a 2.5 mile walk to my office.
Mm-hmm.
First thing in the morning with my cup of coffee. So it's a great way to, start your day.
Yeah.
Even when it's cold, like by the time you get to the office, you're like, all right, I'm ready to go. I got my coffee. I'm awake because of that walk. Like I'm ready to just go do this. The whole working from home thing, I have found myself like sometimes pushing my start time a little bit later just because I don't want to get out of bed.
Because you don't have to be somewhere.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
I was going into the office at the start of December. And so I went into the office 1 day a week for 3 weeks. And then the holidays came. They're like, yeah, you don't have to come into the office the last 2 weeks of the year. Cool. So we were working from home. And then with what's been going on, they're like, the company then issued a statement like, yeah, if you still want to come in, you can. But until further notice, you don't have to.
Okay.
So they've gone back to that. I'm like, okay. But
what do you want to do? And tell me. So what are you going to do? Are you going to go into the office? Or are you going to stay at home?
So yesterday would have been my day to go into the office, and I stayed home.
Why?
Because I didn't have to go into the office.
Okay.
If it was expected of me to be in the office every single day, I would be going into the office every single day. I
understand that.
Because in my previous position a few years ago, a couple people had gotten the option to work from home, not permanently, but they were just giving the option. Hey, if you want to work from home, you can. I was the last person in my group to start working from home. Everyone else was like, oh, really? Sure. And they started working from home. Me, I was still going in the office.
Why?
Because the people I worked with were in the office, and it's much easier to communicate with them in the office because I can just walk over to them and have a conversation, and it'd be a more productive conversation than messaging each other back and forth.
But now you're used to it, so you think that you can do that.
I don't have to communicate with people as much as I used to.
Okay.
With my new position and workload, I can go an entire day and not talk to anybody. And yes, I've kind of gotten used to that. If the company were to sit there and say, hey, next week you got to go, everyone is expected to be in the office Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have any problem doing that. It'd be a little bit of an adjustment.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have an issue doing that. It's this back and forth, your discretion or one day a week. I don't do well with that because it's not a routine.
Okay, so it's about the routine.
I kind of like having a routine, whether it's one way or the other. I like that routine. It's comfortable. I'm used to it. Getting up at a certain time, even going to the office. Obviously, I have to get up earlier. That means I have to go to bed earlier. That's fine as long as I know that's what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. If that's what's expected of me, fine. I can make that adjustment and do that. Doing the work from home thing, I'll speak for myself. Probably a lot of people have gone through it as well. I don't want to say most because I don't know. But I think a lot of people just kind of got complacent with it and, slept in a little bit longer. Instead of starting the day at 8, maybe they started at 8:30. All right. Instead of going to bed at 10, they go to bed at midnight because they can just wake up 2 minutes before they log on.
Right. So with you, though, I mean, you also have an outlet because you also work, you do the podcast once a week and you work a job at the cigar shop 3 days a week.
Yeah.
What if you didn't have that? Do you think you'd be going crazy right now?
If I didn't have the second job at the Tinder Box?
You didn't have the job and you weren't doing this even remotely or anything like that, but you literally you just worked your job, your main job.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess with you enjoying going to, you have the lifestyle hobby of cigars. So you probably would get out of the house and maybe go to the cigar shop, but
yeah, if I wasn't working at the Tinder Box, on the weekends, I might still go to a cigar shop just for that social interaction to hang out with people. Right. Last week, my wife was off and I was still working. But last week of the year is a little slower.
Right.
But yeah, there was one day last week that after I was done with work, I was like, hey, I want to go to this cigar shop and see my buddy that owns that shop. And so we went to that shop, then went and got dinner. I went up to Woodlands in Delaware and gave Ed a BS gold.
Yeah, I saw that.
And he took a picture of me playing poker with him and posted it on your Facebook page.
Yeah, he called me out.
Yeah. Well, then Ginty, the owner of Opa, right there in Delaware, a couple blocks away from that cigar shop, he called me out. He's like, "Oh, you got that guy to come out?" And I'm like, I've known this guy for years. I love coming to this shop and just talking with him and the guys at that shop just because it's a different group of people than the Tinder Box.
So that's kind of my point. So for those that don't say, I know things haven't been shut down necessarily all over. Some countries, some areas they have, you can't, and not even getting into whether you're vaccinated or not, but it's just certain, now you're going back to, even the governor of Ohio, he's kind of flip-flopped a lot of this stuff, but it's as we've learned a lot more, or as time has gone on and more information has come out, it's interesting to me, even with the kids going back to school now after the break I was just talking about, I think I just got an alert that in Columbus, 17 schools are going to stick with remote learning right now. Well, the governor's saying, putting a lot of faith in kids of doing things correctly according to it, but wearing masks and doing these things. But then his statement goes on to say, and I'm not going to quote it because I don't know, but it's something along the lines of knowing the the issues that can arise of kids not going to school,
Mhm.
the socializing aspect of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that even before the pandemic, COVID pandemic, people would hole up. They would hibernate a bit. They wouldn't go out and do stuff. They wouldn't go they don't do any outdoor activities. They don't do, social gatherings. They don't do that stuff because they just get in that winter rut. And now exponentially, it's however many times worse. Sean, what do you got?
I just had a memory pop up on Facebook. I know a year ago today, I was working at Amazon, and it was interesting because I would go to work in the morning and it would be dark. And by the time I'd get out working, it would be dark, which is weird. But the memory I had was I walked 23 miles that day, like a year ago today, when I was working for Amazon. So it's nice. It was nice to at least have that, the exercise with work. Well, now I'm back in aviation, sitting behind a desk, getting home on my computer. I think I logged like maybe 2,000 steps a day. I mean, it's like I did appreciate having what I had back then because I was more active and I could get through the winter. I'm starting to feel like I used to feel for being the winter.
Yeah.
To the point where I've already started talking to a counselor on Monday, and I'm going to talk to him every Monday just to kind of just had some anxiety and stuff from work and just a lot more stress involved with it. So
did you have that as much last year?
The stress? No, I had none. I had maybe
is it job related, or do you think it is this
it's
feel
job,
of
it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. Well, obviously you have a higher pressure job right now in a different way, right? You're not just like, I mean, we talked about when you were at Amazon. I mean, it was high stress because it was just high volume and just boom, boom, boom. You got to hit these things. You're constantly going.
Yeah.
But
more
it's
physical,
less.
Yeah. This
mental
is
stress.
More mental. And I've got a lot of issues from previous jobs where in aviation where you kind of ran through the ringer by the CEOs and being micromanaged and never good enough. And no matter how hard I worked, and I finally have a company now where they appreciate me for who I am, but I have to be able to give myself some grace when I do make a mistake and know I'm not going to get reamed for it.
Yeah.
And they've told me that over and over again, but it's also kind of like a mental trigger when I do start having those attacks, like panic or PTSD, whatever you want to call it. So I'm, my wife being the counselor, she has like suggested maybe you need to get somebody to help you so you can actually don't beat yourself up. You make a mistake and just relax and, kind of just understand they appreciate me for what I'm doing and not beat myself up. So
it's like being in a healthy relationship versus a unhealthy relationship. Honestly,
a month ago, my resting heart rate was like 112 because I was stressing so much.
It's not good.
Yeah. So
doctor,
now
but that's not good.
Now I've, what's cool now is like, I've even talked to my CEO and he's been pretty cool to let me, like I have a marijuana medical card and I was like
you can say that. You don't have to like glance over that.
Okay. Marijuana medical card. No, I told him that. I said, listen,
you got
I
a
have
card
this.
for the weeds.
Is that also known as a green card, or is that something?
Ooh,
no,
that's different.
Totally
it's
different.
Yeah, I know you did, but no, that's different. Yeah, go ahead.
But what it is, what it was nice is because I was like, listen, they took me out of the drug pool to allow me to do that because he knows that will calm me down instead of popping Xanax every day, which I was starting to do. Oof. And I knew that's like not good.
That's the worst way to go.
Yeah. And he was like, no, don't do that. He goes, I'll take you out of the drug pool. He goes, I know what you're capable of doing. I understand that this is more of I'm not going out and getting blazed every night. I'm just having a little bit of candy before I go to bed. Don't wink at me like that, Steve. No, I just have
Are you high right now, Fokker?
No, no, I don't take enough to get really stoned, just to chill me out. And that's helped me a lot. But yeah, I mean, with that and counseling and I've done it for years at that time because of the winter and these, it's dark all the time and it gets tough, but
that reminds me of my best friend when I was in college during, I think it was our junior year. It was during finals, which occur in December. So that kind of leads into, the time change, the season change, all that stuff, getting dark, not as much sunlight, not going out. The week of finals, there was one day I went over to his room just to talk to him and hang out. And his resting heart rate after 2 glasses of vodka was 160. And he was hallucinating.
Jesus.
It's a heart condition.
Well, no, it was just like because of the stress of finals and everything, Like he wasn't sleeping at all. And he was
How much
like,
caffeine was he intaking?
I don't think he was taking any caffeine.
There's other issues there. I get what you're saying, but there's
like just
something going on.
Like just the stress of everything. Like
is he still alive?
Yes, he is.
Okay. That's not a joking question. I mean, that's literally like, if you're that age and you've got that kind of condition going on,
see a cardiologist.
But
cardiologist,
no,
psychologist would also maybe help.
So then something's going on. My reason for hanging out with him became very, very different because I knew like something wasn't right.
Make sure
it doesn't like having a resting heart rate where you're just sitting on the couch and your heart rate's 160 BPM. Like that's not good. And when he starts hallucinating and actually telling me what he's seeing, like that scared the shit out of me.
You need to go to the hospital.
And so finally we got him to actually hospital. Finally we got
it was like almost 20 years ago. All right.
Finally we got him to sleep.
Check him out.
But there was one day he's like, dude, I need to go out and have a cigar. Like I needed to do something to get away from all this bullshit. I need to go out and do something. So I was like, yeah, it's cold as hell right now, but I'll put on layers and go out and have a cigar with you if it makes you calm the fuck down and be able to sleep and not your heart.
Did you say it like that? Because I feel like that would have raised his heart rate. You could have been a little nicer.
Did you call him a pussy? You call him a pussy?
Like, yeah, buddy. Yeah.
No, I did not call him a pussy. I was
being a pussy.
I was legitimately scared for him. And at one point I did ask him if he wanted to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
And he's like, no,
Tim Dodge this sounds like a Red Bull junkie. That's what I was asking. How much caffeine was like, where you're at? Because I've taken in a lot of caffeine and it does affect you sure.
He was not a coffee drinker. He was not
straight
typically
cocaine.
He was not typically a Red Bull guy, although because of playing D&D, he used to drink Mountain Dew with the
and
weight loss pills like opened up into it. But that was not happening at the time. This occurred.
Like, Jesus Christ, that is all caffeine and sugar, and probably ephedra at that time.
Yeah. Well, no.
Yeah.
I think ephedra may have already been banned at that point by my junior year of college. But no, I mean, yeah, it was the stress of the finals and not having some way to get away and relax. Like it was literally, he was just stressed out to where he could not sleep and it started to take its toll.
So I think that, that's kind of what we're talking. That's an extreme case before all this stuff, but we do have some comments out there, from some of our loyal listeners. And I appreciate that. Ray Cheshire saying, I don't know about all this extra stress and anxiety on kids staying at home. Before all of this, they were reporting on how stressful it can be for kids at school. I have zero tolerance for this generation of whining kids. All joking aside, I mean, I feel like that's a normal sentiment of an older generation talking about the now current younger generation.
School uphill both ways
home,
in the snow.
That's not their decision. That's the school's decision, not theirs.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, it's what I'm saying. Like, first off, with Ray saying that, I can relate to that a little bit. It's like you look at like, oh, well, when I was younger and all this stuff, it's on the flip side of that, it's almost like this calloused look of it. Like as you get older, me being a child of the 80s and 90s, it's like a lot of the stuff going on today where I'm looked at in a generation of like, you don't understand. That's already happened. I mean, that was what is happening today is not unique in any way, shape, or form. I mean, this has been going on for decades and generations that the kids think the parents don't understand.
Yeah.
Right. And then now I think we're more in a day and age that certain people from the older generation, it's probably always been the case, but now we just know everything from social media and the overabundance of just information coming at you. Editorials used to be something in the paper. Now it's just something you just look at as you wake up in the morning, right?
Yeah.
All that stuff. But I mean, so I think there is this continuing type of thing where it's like, as an older generation, it's like, well, when I was younger, we had it rough and all this stuff. And now you're complaining about this, and this. And it's like, that was the thing. We just dealt with it. It's like, that's the problem. Like the kids, talking to the adult, that's your problem, is that you guys didn't change it. Blah, blah. This has been going on and there is some positive progress, hopefully. But again, it's not necessarily unique to what's happening now. Ray, I'll say to that is that, the fact that you're saying that at home, or it's stressful growing up. I mean, yeah, the big thing before all this was bullying. Now it's online bullying. You don't think that's happening with them being at home and they're spending more time on social media and shit like that? Now you got fucking TikTok out there. Like every fucking thing that they add to like this, like it's, and I said this about, we couldn't have done the lockdowns or remote learning 10 years ago because technology wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, we had internet, but it wasn't what we have now. We didn't have, you know, the capability of like Skype was like something that like Google was doing, you know, like people at these like Silicon Valley, like, yeah, we can do video chats from everywhere. And it's like, well, I live in the suburbs of the Midwest and I have broadband, but it kind of sucks. And I have a flip phone.
Dial up.
You know, I remember a flip phone.
I remember when movie Demolition Man came out, and there was the scene where
great movie, in a bad way. Bad movie in a great way. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah,
but it's good. I enjoyed it.
But it's when like he gets a call and a person pops up on a screen. It's like that happens now,
right?
You know. So back then when we watched it, we're like, wow, that'd be kind of cool if it ever be like this.
Taco Bell was the only restaurant to survive the franchise wars.
They also had the self-driving cars.
Yeah.
Which we're trying to get there. Terrible idea, in my opinion, but go on.
Yeah, no,
you could access your bank account information with like the chip that was implanted in your hand or something.
Yeah. So, I mean, things are starting to become reality from back in the day when you thought that never would be. So,
well, and so Ray says it's not a generational perspective. It's well documented that kids today suffer from more psychological ailments than ever before. I kind of want to dive into this. One, nutrition is different, right? So that is a thing, right? You know, so like even like when McDonald's started, there was beef. Then it wasn't beef. Now it is beef, sort of. Beef is different than cow. There are things with that. Even with me, I was talking with my doctor. One of the things that he likes to do, something that it's very interesting when you learn about just basic nutrition and what the soil and everything else is happening. So I take on a daily basis a very, very small amount of lithium orotate. And this is something that my doctor talked to me about. This is relevant, right? Oh, here we go. Yeah, that's right. Let's go, Ray. Between you, Sean, and us, let's go. So something like that. So my doctor even said is that there's less lithium in the soil, apparently. And when you look at people that are bipolar, which was phase one, if you will, of what the different ailments are today, because now it's like if you are a slight tweak, it's like you have bipolar and then like 30-40 different like offshoots of that. And it's like my ex-wife, who I say this all the time, like we're still close enough that like we talk as friends, and if we need something, it's great. She's a special education teacher. And I remember even like back then, like 10-15 years ago, it was like one of those things that I was like, I mean, when I was a kid, it was like, you know, you had, if you were doing learning disability, if you're in special ed, you were like severe. Now it's like these IEPs, independent educational plans for all these like little offshoots of something like that, that it's like, I don't want to say it's overclassifying, but it's really diving deeper into these types of things that you'll have more of that. But what I was getting at with like the lithium orotate, there are things that are in the diet and nutrition that we've kind of glanced on this and talked about it before in the podcast. But that's part of it, is that when we talk about, it used to be, well, in the wintertime, getting back on track a little bit, you don't get out in the sun, so you're not getting vitamin D from the sun. Right. That the sun actually stimulates vitamin D production in your body. That's what they're talking about there. Is like, it's not like you just like osmosis again, like you absorb vitamin D3 from, you know, the solar system. It's like literally it has a chemical reaction on your body, to my understanding, that it produces that. So full circle right now, it's like you should be taking vitamin D. There's so much science behind that, but that's not going to sell the big pharma stuff because they're not producing that. Because what is it? BlackRock doesn't own them. So conspiracy tangent. I'm not going to get into that. But it's one of those things that there's proven science there that, again, taking like lithium orotate, that is something that when you're bipolar, for example, since we're talking about some of this stuff, is that the ailments of children, they're not getting necessarily the nutrition that the previous generations had, simply because of what's in the soil from start to bottom. Even if you do this organic stuff and all, like, you're missing things that we may. So we've learned a lot of this stuff behind the scenes that people just look at as like, oh, it's something that GNC wants to sell. That's something that Amazon's now selling. That's the, you know, FDA doesn't approve this stuff. there's enough science and studies that if you look far enough into it, they're not going to talk about it on Fox, CNN, and your local news or anything like that. It's just this is out there.
Yeah.
You just have to talk to people that know about it.
Yep.
Because that is something when I talk about that is that lithium orotate. My doctor lady said, do you have days that like you feel on and some days you don't, that your energy level's not like the same, your mood's not the same? I'm like, I feel like everyone does that.
Yeah.
Which I think most people would agree with.
Yeah.
But then when it comes down to it, he's like, well, this is what I'd recommend, a very small dose of this. That's where like more of the extreme is that someone that has a bipolar, they typically start with a lithium prescription. And then that then can go to other pharmaceutical drugs. But this is something that actually there's enough science behind it that you can actually have a balance of some of that stuff, the mood balance thing. Rhodiola, what is it? Rhodiola. There's another one that like literally came from like Siberia. That was something that like over there they were working with rhodiola. I'm losing the term of it, but it was something that is in some of the supplements as well that you can use for mood stabilization, because this is like a root extract from there, where in Siberia it was this type of winter type of stuff where that's what you're living in all the time, and it just drove people to depression. And so this is something that was developed through all that stuff that now is available in supplements, that you can take this stuff that will actually help you through these times.
My question for you, when it comes to the lithium orate that you were talking about, did your doctor first say whether or not there were other ways of getting that besides a supplement? Like, is that something you can get in certain
So I'm not an expert on this. This is all personal experience. He just said that was the way it was explained to me, is that it was less prevalent in the typical stuff you eat. From the soil.
So it'd be more difficult to actually get that stuff through regular nutrition.
Right.
Because
think of lithium, you think of like lithium batteries and all that stuff. It's not
because I had seen, I think it was last week, I had seen something where like,
and I'm not giving you guys advice to like take lithium orotate or anything like that. I'm just saying this is like,
talk to your doctor first. But no,
talk to your local podcast.
Someone said like, if you go to the doctor complaining of an issue and they don't ask you about like your weight, your health, your exercise, all these other things, and their first instinct is just prescribe you something, you don't have a doctor, you have a drug dealer.
You should just go to the hard stuff first, in my opinion. No, you tired? Cocaine.
Yeah, there are better ways to do that. But I think like with what you've talked about in your experience, I think your doctor's pretty good at that. Like he actually does a full blood work panel and everything, and actually talks to you about what you're doing.
He does
before he makes any recommendations.
Well, he did. Now we just talk bullshit for 30 minutes, and I pay him a couple $100 and he gives me a prescription.
But I
did the initial stuff. So every year, so annually, I do the blood tests that he's, you look at all that stuff. And part of it is vitamin D levels. And part of it is your thyroid T3, T4. Part of it is, as a male at my age, it's PSA. It's, looking at these things that, a lot of people just don't focus on. And, it's like it got to the point where, again, not necessarily because I want to go a little more metaphorical, maybe if we want to, but it's one of those things that like even, and I put it on my Instagram and Facebook story personally, is that, CNN posts something where it's like, if you're overweight, if you lose weight, you have a better chance of possibly surviving or whatever it is with severe illnesses, including COVID-19. So like they first said, if you have diabetes, if you're overweight, if you have these, was it comorbidities?
Yeah.
That you are more susceptible to have severe reactions to this.
Mm-hmm.
Then the turn went to full-blown just vaccination talk. And then now 2 years into it, it's like, oh, recent study shows that if you lose weight and you're healthier, you might not have as many adverse effects to severe illnesses, and including COVID-19. Heart disease is still the number one killer, like, all this stuff. But Big Pharma is absolutely just pumping. If you should exercise, doctor says exercise, eat healthy, all that stuff. Also, here's 3 pills you can take that will help you live longer. Most people leave the doctor, hit up McDonald's drive-through, get their prescription filled at CVS, and go home, take the pills while they're, washing it down with a Coca-Cola Classic.
That's what I was going to say.
Goddamn insane. You're fucking killing yourself. Oh, this is not the what. It's about taking care of yourself, and with the wintertime, it's interesting to me because I look at it as you have a hard time moving on from, or you bide your time until you think that something better is coming along, is kind of the full-blown metaphor. We can address some of these comments that we have coming in, but that's kind of maybe a direction of the conversation in part 2 that we can talk about, is that this is a great metaphor, is that things are better in the warmer, ideal times than when something like winter comes along and it affects your outdoor activities. It affects, the way that, you can't get around as easy. You can't do things you want to do. Now, all of a sudden, like you're in that situation that things have changed outside of your control that you have to now adapt to. Some people adapt very well and they enjoy it. Some people don't, and they just literally, like I say, hole up until the light at the end of the tunnel comes back around.
Well, there's definitely something to be said. Statistically, the month of December. So December obviously is when we're starting to have our shortest days before the winter equinox. So that's the fewest amount of sunlight available, but it's also when it starts to hit that gray season, and there's just so much cloud cover that even if the sun was out, we couldn't see it. But statistically, December happens to also be the most common month for suicides. And but it speaks to that, that seasonal depression that you talked about. Like, statistically, yes, there is something behind it.
There's a lot of ways. There's a lot of studies. And again, I mean, I'm not an expert. It's not only seasonal depression, it's also the holidays, so you got some major holidays as it gets colder.
Stress,
Thanksgiving, you got, if depending on what you celebrate, but, we're talking about with even Spencer last week, it's like Christmas is a very tough holiday if you've got lost loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
This is the time where there's a lot of this stuff. You go through a breakup, Christmas, New Year's, like all these winter holidays that we have made so popular, especially in the U.S., is that you've got these things that you combine that with seasonal depression. Now you combine it with whatever they're going to call the COVID pandemic depression, like all these things we're talking about. The kids, I mean, you're just stacking the deck against people, in my opinion. With that, when you're talking about the mental health, you talk about suicide rates. Obviously, suicide rates, they're plenty well documented that it has gone up over the last 2 years.
Yeah, that's gone up. Alcoholism, not related to the podcast. Domestic violence, child abuse, those things have all gone up during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Why? Because more people are at home, and I think they're at home more, and they've gotten cranky from not being able to go outside and have that normal social interaction, and like they just started losing their shit, and they took it out in the wrong way. But that is something that has happened over the course of dealing with this for the last 2 years. People didn't have the release. They couldn't go to the gym and work out any anxiety or any aggression that they had. They couldn't go to a restaurant. They couldn't go to the gun range, whatever it was. Like they couldn't go to a cigar shop. They couldn't go do the things they were normally doing that maybe they didn't realize were actually a mental benefit because it was a release in some way. And then all of a sudden they no longer had that release, and something in them just snapped and they didn't handle it the right way.
All right, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's two things, right? So you talk about things like in the cigar industry. Let's stay on, like, this is a more local topic here. We have a lot of customers in the cigar industry. A lot of the people out there, there's a couple things, right? There's on the bourbon side, cigar side. Cigar side, you have a lot of customers you do not see until the spring because they are social. They're golfers. They're these types of people that they smoke cigars when it's warmer. They don't smoke in the house. They don't have a garage they do a podcast out of. That only thing you have to worry about right now is the dog barking inside, right? It is something that your hobbies are cut off. Right. So now these outlets that you have on a regular basis, that time is being filled in with either the significant other or your family that's around you or your work people or whatever it is, but whatever that outlet was is now taken away from you by winter / choice. You don't redirect that outlet. In the wintertime, I can't golf, I can't, do these outdoor, I can't sit on my patio and smoke a cigar. So instead, I'm going to use the winter time when I have these extra hours of the week, extra hours of the day to do something constructive. I got to get a winter hobby. No, now we have the Netflix, the, whatever it might be. You just don't do anything. That's going to drive you fucking nuts because now you have to become a different person several times a year.
Become more sedentary.
You get more sedentary. Is he live?
Yes.
Okay. The other side of it is, I want to introduce really quick to you guys because I look at this and, Ray says,
don't worry about what Ray's saying.
No, he asked, is seasonal depression an American disease? I don't know the answer to that. I think that this is something that even from what I understand, like Australia has opposite seasons than we do.
Yeah.
I assume people in Australia go through similar things on the flip side of that, right? When they go into their winter, I think they probably go through it because they're used to a certain type of summer. And I think it does change them. I don't know. I do think that on the American side, there is what I talked about with the holidays that really do bump up that stress level and everything else, the potential sides of things that are sentimental with the holidays of like Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, things that we really celebrate here that's going to compound whatever it is with normal seasonal depression and all the things we're talking about where you don't have the freedom to just do whatever you want, right? But I will introduce the aspect of why is it that on the fitness or the physical side that New Year's resolutions is a lot of it is I'm going to get in shape. Gym memberships go through the roof. And then we talk about the fact that they last January, February, maybe, and then it goes back to normal. Is that I think that's part of this is that it's like this people think that they're going to do something, but they don't actually make a life change. And I think that's part of this is like winter's coming. That is, do you stay consistent with your efforts of being happy and doing things constructive with your life? Or do you bide your time until it gets back to what you're more comfortable?
You all right there, buddy?
A little heartburn. It's really good delivery. This stuff's smooth. It's really smooth. I changed my rating on the pairing. It went up. It's good. It's good. It's good. Sean, go ahead.
No, I agree with a lot you're saying, and with Ray, I think people in the U.S. and a lot of people with what Ray was saying, that people get complacent here, especially in the winter, because it's easy to sit on your couch and binge watch whatever.
Yeah. Good shows too right now.
Oh, they're incredible.
Right.
But one thing I've kind of taken a different approach to this year is I've done the whole I'm going to get in shape, eat better. And it's over the years. I mean, I've actually dropped quite a bit of weight, but that's the thing. By springtime, all my hobbies are able, I can go golf again. I can go fish. I can do all that. And now all of a sudden that becomes secondary or non-existent.
The priorities of your time change.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's where there's a huge drop too. But this year I've kind of taken a different approach where I'm not going to go balls out. And I think that's one of the problems I have is I'm a black and white thinker. I think if I have to do it, I got to eat perfect and I got to work out every day. And, of course, my wife being the counselor that she is like, you need to take a different approach because you're not going to stay consistent with it. So, one thing I did is I got that Oculus game or the VR.
I saw that. Is that Meta or Facebook?
I don't know. I don't do that shit, but
I think that was who makes that.
I guess. I don't know. But there's like a workout game. It's so fucking cool. It's like kind of a cardio thing, but you're like in the middle of the fucking desert. And then all of a sudden you're on the surface of the moon or you're doing all these different like workout things that you use your controls with and you work your ass off, but it's fun. And I think I need to start making things more fun, enjoy it, become a hobby and make it more become like a hobby. Whereas you're not going somewhere that you're going to do and you're dreading going to it. I think that's where people get that problem. They go to the gym and it becomes more of a, oh, shit, I got to go to the gym. It's now you're against what you're wanting to really do. So
I look at so on that note, Ray asked, what is that, Nate?
Old Granddad 114. So
great bang for your buck bottle.
Yes, it's a 30. I think it's now $31 in the state of Ohio. But when I mentioned that on my birthday on New Year's Eve, when I bought a customer a cigar, one of our regulars, he decided to, because at first he's like, all right, I'll pay for this. And my other cigar is like, no, I got that for you because you never smoked one. Like, that cigar is on me. And then he's like, oh shit, I'll bring you a bottle. This is what he brought.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you.
To your point, Sean, it's when the newness wears off, the honeymoon phase is over.
Sure.
Right. I think that's a lot of this, right? So this is interesting to me when you talk about winter and just the overall change out of your control. So what you're talking about with the working out thing, it is a very common, I guess, experience where it's like when you get a new job, you're excited about it.
Yep.
Super excited. Could last 6 months, year, whatever it is. At some point, it becomes a job.
Yep.
Yeah. They talk about if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Bullshit.
You're making enough money, stress is low enough. You're one of the very choice few that lasts a very long time.
Sure.
Everything becomes a job. Sean, you've been married for how many years? 20. Nate? You don't look up and think about this.
11.
Jesus Christ. All right, so 11, 20. You guys out there, you throw your relationship status in there. It's not always easy. The honeymoon phase is over.
Right.
There's a reason that a lot of people will break up and then look back and be like, well, it wasn't that bad. I just, at the time, it was what it was. They get divorced because of where they're at and how people evolve. I mean, these types of things happen. People get unhappy in their job because they're simply complacent. They get unhappy in their relationships because they're simply complacent. And it's both sides of it. But if you're looking at yourself, there's a John Party song I was listening to. John Party's a country artist, and it was I forget the title, but it's something along the lines of like "Love Her Like She's Leaving."
Like that.
And basically, the whole thing is that do your job. He doesn't talk about this, but I'm like putting this into this. Is that with a relationship, you get complacent, you're going to not only lose yourself but lose that other person. If you get complacent in your job, you might not do what you were doing when you first got it and you're excited about it. If you're in your fitness journey and you're excited at first and all of a sudden it becomes like, it's winter. It's nice to I'll just work out tomorrow. I'm tired. I want to stay in bed. You get complacent with it. But you wait till you get to that extreme of complacency where now you have health issues when it comes to what we were talking about. Relationship issues is like that person's like, and they might be guilty of it too. The job, your employer might be guilty of it too, but it's like this complacency is really the sickness of it all, is that then you get to this point where it's like the extreme is now hitting. You're either on the brink of getting fired, you got fired. You're on the brink of like going through a breakup or a divorce, and you have that. Your friendship with someone, they're tired of dealing with it, or you're tired of dealing with them. You just didn't do these things that you did in the beginning, right? The honeymoon phase is something that it's never going to be consistent throughout. But I got to tell you, there's another honeymoon phase euphoria or feeling. It is that love her like she's leaving, because now all of a sudden you're trying to be the best person for that employer, that significant other. You are now having health issues, and now you're being like, well, now I got to start eating right. I got to start working out. I got to start treating myself better. There is this complacent stage where you can actually eat whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. You can just kind of just roll through this, but that wave will absolutely crash. And now you just got this calm water where you are just kind of floating, and it's not exciting anymore. And some side of that, whether it's you and your health, it's you and your significant other, it's you and the employer, you want that wave energy coming back. You want that really powerful like growth. You're striving for that. Someone is. You need that.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that is something that is really relevant to this. I think that a lot of times winter is coming. Talking about this topic is that I do think that people that are just biding their time to the next wave of spring, that's when you talk about like the mental health or the suicide rate or whatever it is, and we're not experts, we don't know the stats on that, but I want to say that this is something that if all you're doing is sitting in that calm water when nothing is happening, you start getting bored, then you get complacent, then you get inward,
mm-hmm.
and you start saying, well, it was exciting when I came into this. Now it's not.
Since you're talking about relationships, I know Tim Dodge mentioned it. So Tim's
and Ray, I am still talking. Yeah, thank you.
Tim's a buddy of mine from another cigar shop, and over the last couple months, his wife got diagnosed with cancer. She went through treatment, got over the cancer, and then while she was still in the hospital, got COVID, and was stayed in the hospital for a while. At one point, they actually told the family that she would never leave the hospital.
Mm.
And it was within the last week that she went home. And
cheers to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheers to
Tim
that.
and your wife. Cheers.
His wife, Barb, great lady. But yeah, I mean, and he says like when you have a spouse that is going through something like that, like you find out how much that relationship matters. You're talking about that John Party song, like
yeah,
when they're leaving,
it's a different meaning to it.
Like you're talking about like when they're leaving, like they're walking out of the relationship. This is potentially the end of the relationship.
Yeah.
Like what my mom went through a couple of years ago when my stepdad got diagnosed. Like during those 4 months left, like they were doing everything they can. I mean, they were going on vacation. They were still doing their anniversary dinner. Like they were trying to make the best of the time they had. But I think with something like that, they had an advantage of knowing that, or at least in my mom and stepdad's experience, they had the benefit of knowing when it was going to end,
right?
Or that it was going to be a very short end. They knew that. So now they could sit there and be like, okay, what do we want to do? We want to go out on a high note. Like, let's make the best of it while we can. In a relationship where the person might, like, some people get so complacent in that relationship, they don't know that relationship's coming to an end, that other person's going to walk out. So they don't do all those things to make it worthwhile to keep that person.
So I think that's what we're kind of talking about. Like Tim McGraw has a great song, "Live Like You Were Dying," right?
Yeah.
That's a great song. If you guys, I'm throwing out these country songs, and Ray, I know you're out there, and I don't know if they have country music out in Vietnam, but you should check some of these out. Yes, I am still talking. But I mean, this is something. And thank you for sharing, Tim and Nate. Thank you for sharing that with Tim and your wife, and Nate with your family. Those are those lessons, right? And I'm going to bring this back. Tim says, "Great song."
Can I say something real quick before you come in? Okay.
When Ray asked, was it last week when he was talking about, or 2 weeks ago when we were talking about it, and he's like, you're going to live your life to prepare for a pandemic. When we were talking about like health and stuff like that. You remember that, Nate?
Mm-hmm. I do.
That's kind of the same thing here. It really is. It's like, yes, you have shortcomings, but if you wait, and we're talking like with Sean about this, and hold on to your thought because I want to hear it, but it's like those types of things. It's like when that honeymoon phase is over, the working out or eating well, and then all of a sudden you just kind of get complacent again. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you look in the mirror or you go to the doctor, you're like, hey, you gave yourself diabetes. Mm-hmm. You have a new heart condition because you're overweight and you're not exercising, you're not eating well. That is something that to Ray, your comment last week or the week before, it was that whole thing where it's like, you're going to like live, they're going to do all this stuff, just like you can take these vitamins and work out and like get some sleep and do all these things the best you can, so that if a pandemic or something like something really critical comes up, that you're prepared for it. Goddamn right I am, to the best of my ability, because that is something that you can do. and hopefully translate that to your job, translate that to your relationship, translate that to everything in your life, your own personal relationship with yourself. You do this on a regular basis so that hopefully if something comes up, you've done everything you can. You're still going to die. You might still have a breakup that you didn't see coming. You might get fired, but you know that you did everything you can. That's the struggle on a constant basis. The fact that we're entering into winter, it's the same thing. I post stuff about, like, on the fitness side of it is like winter is when you get your summer body, right? That's, to a lot of people, are like, whatever, you know what I mean? That's like, okay, like, cool, like meathead, whatever, like, you know, like doing whatever. And I'm not, because but
you're around now. You can't.
But I go through my ups and downs and struggles like that. That's actually a motivation, is that when we get to the winter, when you start feeling that stuff, it's like that's when you feel knocked down. You see, like, you get back up, but it's how quickly you can actually respond to those things and realize that it's happening. You don't go a week, you don't go a month, you don't go until spring, you don't go until something comes up where it's like, I feel completely like shit. You realize, like, every time I got sick in the past 10 years, I got to be honest, it's normally when I forgot to, or I got complacent. I was like, oh, my vitamins ran out. I'll go when I go to Kroger. I'll go when I go to the supplement store. I'll go. 2 weeks go by. I get sick in that meantime. It's those regiments, those things that you do on a regular basis, not only to take care of yourself, but really to stimulate yourself, to show those people you care about them, to show that employer and that job that you're still kicking ass. If you don't want to be there, then figure it out. But as long as you keep doing that, I think that's something that you can really work on all the time. 365, whether it's winter, spring, summer, fall, whatever it might be. I think this is something that you can really work on from all aspects. And it's tough. It really is tough. What do you want to say, Sean?
Just a couple things. And Nate, when I say this, I'm not comparing myself to what your father and mother went through, because they, you know, when he was sick, you guys kind of had like a knowing thing. But just coming from my health standards, when I had my brain tumor, when I had my heart issue, at that time, during and a little bit after, I was like taking every day, one day at a time, staying present, loving life. But again, over time, back to complacency. I'm not, again, and this has nothing to do with you guys, you were talking about. But so it's definitely a roller coaster for me. And I think this time, when you talk about the fitness stuff at the first of the year, I think people overcommit too much and they start too hard, and then all of a sudden they bottom out a lot quicker than
you overcorrect.
Overcorrect.
I think overcorrect is a term not used enough these days.
Right. And I think, like, even last week, my wife and I were walking the dogs, and I was like having a really hard time with the fact of that black and white thing. Like, how am I going to work out if I'm not going to eat good? And like, I was beating myself up, and she's like, just fucking move, go move.
Love it. And
she's like, the eating will fall in place, because you're going to want to start eating better once you start feeling better. Because I know if I eat like shit, I feel like shit. And you're going to say something?
Go ahead, finish your thought, but I have a question for you.
Yeah. So like this approach this year, instead of going all balls out, like, I'll be going to the gym down the road, but I am taking things a little bit slower in terms of my workout and my eating regimen. I'm enjoying it. I feel better already, just in a few workouts I've already done, but I'm also not like, fuck, I got to go back. I'm excited to go back again. It's like, I think you got to find that sweet spot where at least when you're doing something healthy, you want to come back for it the next day. Yeah. Instead of just like, oh my God, I just did P90X for an hour. I don't know fucking way I can do this tomorrow. You know, it's like, that's too much. And I think people jump into shit like that way too much. Yeah. And now I'm starting to see the light a little bit of like, just those little bit of movements. And just in the last few days, it's like I wake up with more energy already. And Made's not been the best, but I've also kind of corrected a little bit because of what I was craving. Instead of, I think when you're complacent and you're lazy and you're not doing anything, you go to comfort food. But when you're start to feel yourself moving and just getting a little, and it doesn't have to be a lot, and just getting, whatever you can muster up and do and not kill yourself and get a little bit of energy, just break a little sweat, get your heart rate up, makes a world of difference. That's one of the things I want to say.
When you talk about
that, thank you.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about getting complacent after the diagnosis with your brain tumor and then having the heart issue shortly after, which you talked about that when you were on the podcast. Did that complacency happen while you were still battling that, or did it happen after like that stuff had been taken care of?
It was way after.
Okay.
It was like months after.
Yeah.
Like for the heart thing, how that thing lasted almost 4 months because I kept going back and going back. And the brain surgery was very, is a long process of healing.
Yeah.
Like after I got out of the hospital, I had double vision for 3 months, and I had no peripheral vision. I could only see out of half of my eye. So combine that with double vision, I couldn't read.
Yeah.
I couldn't watch TV except to shut one eye, but could only see half the screen. I remember going to a Notre Dame football game, and I had to like kind of close my one eye and look off to the left or the right to even see what the hell was going on. But those times, those things kept me in the present and kept me motivated to try to do whatever I can to be prepared. So when I did get my vision back, or do whatever I could to get some of my vision back, I stay focused. And I think once months after that was all said and done and we were back in cruise control, things you go back to your old ways, So
you're absolutely right. And I think this is taking the best practices.
Mm-hmm.
And I've mentioned that on this podcast about what we've gone through as a world last couple of years. I think I mentioned it last couple episodes where it's like literally like now people are sick. Like I don't have COVID, and they're just like coughing into their hand. I'm like, Jesus, like you didn't learn anything from this. Now I know why the government, at least in the US, had to say, wash your hands for 30 seconds. Brush your teeth for 2 minutes. They didn't say that, but they should probably say that.
Yeah.
Cough or sneeze into your sleeve. Mm-hmm. Cover your fucking mouth.
Yep.
People don't do that because the best practices of when you're in that crisis mode, you really need to hold on to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that, like with you in that situation, when you thought you were done and you were living like you were dying, you were surviving all that stuff, and then all of a sudden now you're living again.
Yeah.
It's really easy to slip back into that person before all that happened.
It's insanely easy.
It's hard to wrap your head around the fact, like, how would I get back to that point? When you talk about it, how would I wrap my head around the fact that it's like, I'm never, it's like the same thing. Working out New Year's. All right, I'm fat as fuck. I'm out of shape, whatever. I'm not talking about you, Sean, but I'm like anyone else. Like, I'm not in shape. I'm going to just kick ass. Well, you take the best practices that you learn in that first month or two, and then you realize, how can I relate this to reality? Mm-hmm. Do I want to be like we talk about on social media? It's like, it's unfair that, that guys they judge themselves based on like social media or like, like it used to be like movies or magazines. Girls have to deal with it even more especially. It's insane. You want to be like that? Great. The commitment that those people have to do, if they're not like 19, 20 years old and they're just like, all right, talk to me when you're 30, 35. Yeah. How do you look? If there's like a 30, 40-year-old person that looks great, I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is reality, right? All that stuff. No, because I'm not. Because to me, I'm my biggest critic. I'm not who I was at 35. You know what I mean? I'm not who I was when I first got all that stuff. And I don't want to be, I want to have the six pack. I want to do all that stuff, but I also don't want to do this low calorie, no carbs, all that stuff. I've tried to, and it's consistently a struggle where I have to do all that stuff, because when I do that, when I do what your friend was doing with like I was doing on fat burners on top of pre-workout, all that stuff, my caffeine intake was way above 1,000 milligrams a day, just because I thought that might help. It's not healthy. And as I get older, I got to realize that I got to do these things differently. And I'm not 30 years old.
Yep.
So now I got to be the best 40-some-year-old person.
So that takes to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to bring in, first of all, Dario Wilson. And I don't know if it's Dario or Dario. Do you know this person?
I don't.
So I apologize. So I'm mispronouncing your name, but he said, my wife of 23 years passed from cancer January 13th last year. 1-year anniversary is coming up. Nate, you commented on there. We were talking, sorry for your loss. Here's hoping you're staying strong. He said, thank you. Those are those types of things that I don't know the situation there, but this is something that I think that, you know, it sounds like, and I've not seen this person comment on our podcast up until this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Earlier he said he's late tuning in.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you drinking and smoking? Now we're here. That's what I love about this podcast, is that we get to this point sometimes. But I do want to send my love and support to you, Dario.
Sure.
And if I'm saying the name wrong, I get stuck on those things.
Yes.
I feel like, but you know, to you know, our condolences and
For sure.
you know, to echo Nate's sentiment there, is that I hope you're hanging in there strong, and losing someone. I can't even imagine what it's like to go through all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you're doing well, because then he throws out here, I tried eating salad for a week a few years ago and failed miserably.
My salads kept turning into steak sandwiches.
Yeah, what am I doing wrong? But yeah, no. Again, raise a glass. Rest in peace to your wife.
Yeah, so sorry, man.
It's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I want to talk to Ray again. He says, I have a great relationship with myself. I exercise regularly, not obsessively. I eat what I like in moderation. I have traveled the world, not recently, and just had my annual health check, which showed everything is good other than slightly high cholesterol. Live your life. You only get one, unless you're Buddhist. It's your multiple apostrophe RE. Then, of course, you get lots, which if you're Buddhist, great. That sounds good. But even Ray, I know him well enough that he's gone through his hardships as well. You know what I mean? He's married, divorced, and now he's married again, and he's traveled all over the world. He's taken jobs in different countries. He, you know, originally from the UK, went Mexico, United States, Hong Kong, Vietnam. You know, this is not necessarily your normal life, but you can't glaze over those struggles. Because I will say this, and I'll give Ray credit, and I love the guy, and I know we give each other shit a lot. But, you know, Ray, I think you are someone that he has taken the lessons and the best practices.
Of course, yeah.
So that when, again, I keep bringing this in, like trying to keep on topic to a point and realize that this is why we picked this, is that next winter comes around. You're not doing the New Year's resolutions. You're not doing it's not the same thing. Like, oh, it's like I didn't work out throughout the year. I didn't eat better. I didn't live my relationship life better. I didn't do my job better. Now, this next 2022, this is the year.
Yeah. 2022.
You've been fucking saying that for 10 years.
2022 is going to be my bitch.
Ray's saying, I learned this will be my best year. I'm going to take what I learned. I got my best practices. I'm taking care of myself. I'm showing my significant other what I learned from my previous relationships. He's retired now, but like he went through different jobs as well. It's like you can grow from this. It's not just this winter. It's not just this season. It's not just this moment. It's as you build those moments, those seasons, you build those years together. It's like, this is the success.
But I think part of it is also recognizing what the problems or issues are. So that way, then the next time you're able to deal with them a little bit better.
Yep.
So if you're someone that you suffer from that seasonal depression and you figure out why that is it because of lack of social interaction? Is it because of lack of activity and mobility? Whatever it is, if you figure out what the cause is, then the next time when that situation comes up, whether it be a seasonal thing or a life event, you're better prepared to handle it because you know what the issue is. You don't have to let yourself, sink down towards the bottom before you start making a change. You can curb it ahead of time.
You got to find that healthy to you, what your goals are. It's about a lot about self-realization, right? It's like, what are your goals? If they're realistic, and that will sway, what's realistic. Sean's out there talking about this, they're having this conversation about this. Nate, you were involved about that, like body fat, Nate, you say, I was in the best shape of my life at 5% body fat. I was also 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, so was I.
That sounds great.
Yeah. I was, yeah.
What are you like, what, 6 or 7% now? Like,
I love you,
My
Steve.
parents wanted me to eat more when I was that age.
I don't mass hard.
I
Sean
think-
says, well, as a teenager going through puberty, it's probably not as problematic. But once that's over, that the overwhelming stuff I see says you should maintain 13, 18%. Again, these are things that it's as long as, and I like that, Ray commented in not tribute to what I've been preaching, but it's you go see a doctor.
Yeah. It's,
And as we have a female following, but we have still a predominantly male following on this podcast. And one of those things that as we, a lot of our demographics, in my opinion, they don't go to the doctor. They just don't, unless you're truly sick and you're now in the ER. But I hear a lot of times, I haven't been to the doctor in 7 years. There's a stubbornness, but also there is what I talk about, and is that it's what's ironic to me, males especially, whether you take care of yourself or you take it to a professional in America, males will maintain their cars and refer to professionals, even if they take care of it themselves, better than they take care of their own body.
Yep.
you're probably not wrong.
I know I'm not wrong. It's insane
Yeah.
because you can go out and buy another car, but if you fuck up your chassis, you're fucked.
Mhm.
It's insane.
Why do you think that is?
Because it's.
I know what it is.
Go ahead, Sean.
Go.
We should've
Fucking
just
Uber
brought it to
Eats
Jared,
and
but you don't have
DoorDash.
your blue sweatshirt on, so you can't be on the podcast.
It's
What is it?
Uber Eats and DoorDash.
Oh, now you're bringing that in.
Well, no, it's just the fact that I'm going back to the complacency thing again. It doesn't help. I think nowadays where you're cold and it's winter and you're doing that the comfort food and you're like, oh, I don't even have to go get the fucking junk food. They can be delivered right to me, front door.
Yeah. I got to be honest though. Like I had a couple, Julie and Chris Faulkner on the old street, right?
Yeah.
You know, like they're great people. And, Julie brought over for Christmas a bag of chips. It was in the house. And if I didn't throw it out, cause I didn't eat the whole bag at the end of this podcast, when you guys leave, if I walk back into the house, I'm
You'd
like,
be wailing on them chips.
fucking housing them. Yeah. You make choices.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, you never go grocery shopping. It was like, because I know me.
Yeah.
If I go grocery shopping, I'll get all the healthy stuff. I'm like, I'll just walk down this aisle.
This chip aisle.
$2.99 for a bag of chips. That's amazing.
Wait, no high fructose corn syrup. Those
Yeah.
should be healthy.
Yeah. This is organic, total fat, all of it.
See,
How
that's
many servings? 3. I got it.
So sometimes my wife likes me going to the grocery store with her, and then sometimes not. If I go with her and we're walking down the aisle and she wants to grab something, I'm like, no, we don't need that. No, we don't need that. We don't need that. But then I'm also like, let's just get out of here as quick as possible.
Yeah.
That's the reason I don't want her going down every single aisle and picking up stuff. It's not because whether it's unhealthy or not. It's because I just want to get the fuck out of there.
Yeah. I will.
But I also help keep her on a budget. Like,
No
no,
shit.
we don't need to spend
Right.
$4 on a box of Cheez-Its. That's
All right.
I will
Bob
say.
Rare.
I will say there's also it's not really there's another extreme to like the whole weight loss thing too, is like people who compete for these like IBF, whatever, like Shannon and his wife was saying that she was miserable, and like you go out to a different extreme to that too. So that's maybe a different story. But anyway.
No, I
Just
get what
thought
you're
I'd-
saying. Like, no, so when you're doing these things, that's the importance of the overall picture, right? You know, this is something that when we talk about the topic, winter is coming, is that you know it's coming. So do you prepare
Yeah.
for that scenario? That was the whole thing with like Ray when he was asking me, like, oh, you prepare all the time in case pandemic comes. No, I didn't know it was coming. That's not my motivation. That's not why we keep doing this podcast every week. It's if we're going to do the podcast, it's not someone asked me today at like 2:00. Hey, what's the topic tonight? Well, between now and the podcast, I'll have it for you. It's not always smooth. Like this whole, like we literally, like it's been an hour and a half that we've been talking about winter is coming. Sometimes it just comes up when we have guests. Nate and I, it's just us on the camera. Sean, thank you for being a part of it, being in the audience and being on the mic. But it's like, it's one of those things. It's like, if we have guests, that frames it. If we don't, again, 202 episodes in, we can talk about current events. It's going to be fucking COVID. It's going to be politics. It's going to be all that stuff because that's all that we have out there. You know what I mean? Like, you want to talk about something else? Like, then talk to your local legislature, like the local politicians and your local news stations to change the narrative so we can talk about something else.
Or if you want us to talk about something else, give us ideas to talk about something else.
That's a great idea. No,
well,
go ahead.
Well, because to the listeners out there, like you mentioned it earlier, Steve, like part of you wants to go back and listen to some of those early episodes of the podcast, not to critique them, but this is now episode 202. Some of the topics we have talked about before, but you want to go back and listen to some of those other ones and maybe bring back some of those original topics just because in the last 4 years, shit's changed.
Well, we had good topics and we try to steer clear of those. And it's funny. It's, Tim says, you guys are killing it most nights. You do it every week. All right. Tim, let me tune into your podcast and see what you're talking about once a week.
Tim's podcast is about fishing.
All right. Well, maybe I stand corrected. Maybe he actually kills it every week.
He's out there slaying fish.
Slaying fish. Ray says, as long, and I'm sorry, I'm not throwing the comments up on the screen, but, as long as you accept the opportunities and end results, I say live your life the way that makes you happy. That is a self-realization that I think that you really need to get to that point.
It depends on what makes you happy. There are some things that might make you happy that are just completely wrong or illegal. So careful with that open-ended statement.
Once again, you accept the opportunities and the end results. Get after it. You might just end up with 3 meals a day on the state. Prison, Nate.
Yeah. 3 meals in a cot.
3 hots in a cot.
Thank you. 3 hots in a cot. There you go.
Thank you, Ice Cube.
There's a nice pop culture reference. Thank you.
Dario says, I'm glad I found this. We're glad to have you, Dario. Absolutely. We do have fun every week.
Mm-hmm.
Next week, and I'm not ending this, we can do closing remarks. What's that? I don't know. Dario, where are you at? Comment on the feed. But next week, it's cool. The next week guests are a couple of, just to kind of comment on that, a couple of guys, Brad and Eric, that are firefighters, Columbus CFD, Columbus Fire Department. And
they're going to be here in the garage?
They're going to be here. So really brief getting into this. This is a fun story. I hope you guys tune in next week, but it's like something that so there was a few years ago when our Smoking 10 event was getting closed down by the fire marshal because we didn't do the right paperwork. We didn't know about it. We had done it. Again, it was like year 6 of doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Weren't hiding from anyone. And the fire marshal came in and I immediately went to Brad and Eric. I'm like, hey guys, I know you just got your buffet of food. Can I steal you guys for a second? And so we'll talk about that next week. But these are 2 really good guys. They've been on the fire department for a long time. But they've also gotten into making their own rye and bourbons. They're bringing some. I got a bottle inside right now. So they've actually teamed up with, just from their connections, they've teamed up with Middle West, which we had some people on from them a long while back. But so they got some barrels and all that stuff, but they actually did some cool things where they took some of the White Dog from Middle West and they did their own barrels in their own place. And then They did some other experimental stuff with like port rum barrels. They did some Ezra Brooks, and they put it in another barrel, and they did all this stuff. So they're going to come on and talk about that stuff, as well as, and I'm going to talk to them about a topic, but some fun dudes. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you brought some of the samples into the shop. That was
they brought it.
Well, they brought, yeah.
I've got something inside that they did a rye with.
That Christmas rye that I saw.
Yeah. It'll be a fun podcast.
You know how I like ryes.
That's right. All right, so let's do some closing remarks.
Dario's listening from Milwaukee, which, from the notes I have in the back of my...
He really needs to send us if he says Dario or Dario. Just so for future reference.
All right. Steve has been saying Dario. Is that correct?
That.
You said it first.
It's fair. All right. Closing remarks. Winter is coming. Sean, you're basically the guest on this second part. So before you do that, though, I do want to put up this. I love doing that. You're ready. You're amped.
Fuck yeah, man.
Patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast. You guys are amazing. Join the Patreon page if you guys want, if you're enjoying this. $5, $10, $25 a month. It just goes to supporting buying heaters, propane, the lights, everything else, streaming this. It keeps going up. Everything keeps going up. Venmo @bourbonbs. You guys can send us a detailed message on that when you contribute that. If you want us to buy a bottle to review or whatever else, or if you guys can't send us something, it helps. Or if you want to throw a one-time donation, I know your mom has done that twice.
Mm-hmm.
Venmo is a better way to do it.
It is.
Less cost on that. And
or just give me the money, Mom.
Or give Nate the money.
And
I got to come up with a new banner on this.
Give me the money,
cash
Mom.
to Nate in an alley. Thanks to our sponsors, Tinder Box at Easton. I haven't even gotten to the Upman.
You still smoking the first one?
Yeah, I know. It's according to Ray, I talk too much. But Tinder Box at Easton, Columbus, Ohio. Also, Altadis USA. Thank you, Josh, for all the support. We've got some great stuff coming from them. The Upman Nicaragua that Nate's smoking, I have yet to smoke because apparently I talk too much. On
How many times
podcast.
have you had to relight that Crux?
Less than you'd think. BS Cigar Company as well. Gold and silver are available. Let me see if I can find this. Buyjack.com/bourbonbs for the shirts. We've got some new stuff coming out, including the hoodies, and Nate's taking off his clothes.
I'm just unzipping the shirt to show him the t-shirt.
Okay, I won't.
Yeah, so we got some great stuff on there. In the meantime, we're gonna get some new hoodies up there, new 3/4 sleeves on there, but it'll be fun. This year's gonna be fun for some apparel. And if you're a Patreon member, you actually get a discount on there as well.
So we were correct in saying Dario.
Good.
He let us know.
Good.
Yeah, nailed it. Closing remarks. Sean, you are the honorary guest tonight.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I learned a lot tonight. Just because it's just being able to bring a lot of these things up to light that I've been thinking about, and also with what Ray said, and just about kind of being prepared. I never looked at the winter that way before. I just kind of like was more of a, I get here now, what the hell do I do? Instead of like, moving forward, like kind of looking ahead and being prepared. I think it's an excellent idea. And also go with some of my own advice is when you do something, whether it's working out or something new that it may take a little effort, is try to find that happy medium and not go extreme, and don't think black and white like me, and look at it as more of a, like an adventure, a journey, and enjoy what you do. And like you said, enjoy your life. But when you do these changes, do it to where you're going to enjoy it and not dread it. And I think there's a happy medium in everything in life that will allow you to be able to enjoy it, even if it's sometimes hard. That's all I got.
Nice. Nate, go ahead. No, yeah, we're looking at the comments.
I know. I was getting ready to reply, and I was like, "Oh shit, Sean's done already."
It was quick. Ray says, "You two clowns know what I mean," and then he says, "I rest my case." And
Well,
Then he says that I ain't listening. Ray Chester, you must be right.
Well,
I love the heat I get from doing this podcast.
Ray said he liked Sean because Sean brings up his comment or mentions what he comments. I was going to bring up when you missed an episode because you had COVID and Dustin and I were running it. Like I was bringing comments up as much as I could, so that way we could try and make the podcast last a little longer since it was just Dustin and I.
and I literally commented earlier. I was like, I'm not bringing it up on the screen, but I've talked about Ray.
And then Ray,
in a healthy amount.
Yeah, Ray messaged me after that podcast and was like, "I like having you run it because you bring up my comments."
So I got to put them on the screen. Jesus Christ, Ray! If you want to be a producer on the show, go ahead. We'll hire you for nothing. You get a cigar. Nate, go ahead with your closing remarks.
So Steve, I'd asked you before we did the podcast, like, and I do this some weeks, not every week.
Yeah.
Some weeks are a little more obvious than others, but I'd ask you, like, what was the reasoning for this topic? Like, why do you want to talk about this?
Yeah.
Why did you want to talk about this?
So I think it's relevant in a lot of ways. Obviously, seasonally, it's something that we can talk about, and I will say to this, all of you guys out there, is that coming up with a topic every week for a podcast that we do on cigars and whiskey, it's not always easy. And some of the podcasts I listen to, they have a steady stream of guests. That's also difficult to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that I go through waves where I have like 4 or 5 weeks out, and I'm not, pushing on Nate by any means, but to you guys out there, is that this is something that Nate is a huge supporter and part of the podcast, and this is his podcast as well. But it comes on my shoulders to do that, and sometimes that's why it's just you and I tonight. And I love these podcasts. I absolutely love when it's just the two of us. Sean is a lot of fun to have in here, and we have a live studio audience. We have Ray, Sean, and a lot of people on the live feed as well. But it's tough to come up with topics, and that's where I was telling you when you asked me that, when I said I want to go back to the first like 20 to 50 episodes and look at when we were really getting creative on this stuff, and I'm not going to go back and listen to those podcasts and just see what we had to say about that stuff when Jake was a part of it, but listen to the topics to a point that I'm like, all right, let's revisit it. This is one that winter is coming, that I know this is relevant.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to talk about COVID response, vaccinations. It's easy to talk about this every week because that's all we hear. Translating that to everyday life and get away from that type of mentality is a little bit tougher. So why I came up with this topic was winter is coming, is that it's here.
Yes,
and I know that I've struggled with before. I don't know, like, I'm sorry to ruin everything for everyone, but like, there was life before COVID-19 and it was tough. We don't realize that it was tough to go into the winter, whatever country you're in or whatever your climate is. But in this area, in the US, there are new struggles. News story here in the US, if you guys aren't, I know Siri, it's fine. But like, there was a highway that was shut down.
Oh yeah, in Virginia.
I saw a news story today. Yeah, Virginia. The news story is that there was a car behind a bread truck, and they were shut down that interstate for, what was it, a day?
Yeah.
That person called the corporate office, that then called the driver that was super experienced, And then that car and that driver started distributing bread because no one had food out there. There are these positive, huh?
Yeah,
It was the snow
snowstorms.
came in, and their DOT couldn't prepare for it because of the way it came in, and so it's one of those stories that, like, it's a feel good story, but at the same time, it was also projected that I saw that it was just like, oh my God, like people still care about each other.
Yeah, it was a positive side of that story.
So that was my response to you.
So talking about it tonight, I think one of the things that I've gathered from it is sometimes it's not just a winter thing. We notice it, I think, more when winter comes, but I think we can apply the same lesson to other aspects of our life. Whether we know a situation is going to come up or not, we still need to do the best we can to prepare for adverse events that come up. So that way we are ready for them. You know, I'm not talking about preppers. that's a whole different ballgame. But even those people, like, they're prepping for one specific thing, and sometimes they're not even doing that well. But they're prepping for a what if. But there are other things in life that are much more common and much more reasonable that come up that some people are just not prepared for. And I think that is a lack of foresight on people's part. I'm not saying people could have predicted what we've gone through the last 2 years, but what we've talked about through some of the past episodes recently is there are things that we could have done as individuals that could have made us more prepared for this. So that way we would have possibly reacted better to it or been in a better situation for it. For example, my wife and I, we prepare for things that might come up financially.
Right.
We don't know that, we don't know a certain issue might come up, like all of a sudden a car just blowing an engine. We may not know that situation is going to come up, but we can at least prepare for that from a financial standpoint. You can do the same thing from a health standpoint. You don't know a pandemic is going to come up, but you can at least do things to take care of yourself to prepare for that. There was the other day at the shop when I was working on Monday for Todd, and it was Josh and I.
Yeah.
There was a guy in the shop who was talking about an uncle of his who this customer actually referred to his uncle as morbidly obese. And because of that, he all of a sudden had health issues, and they weren't even related to COVID. But all of a sudden he started having health issues and was in the hospital. And Josh and I looked at each other and like, you're talking about this and you're over 400 pounds. Like,
yeah.
What are you doing? Like, you have a prime example within your own family tree of an issue. Like, what are you doing to take care of that or to not have that same issue? So the whole idea of winter is coming, like we talked about before, the seasonal depression aspect. I think the first time we talked about it, there was a guy who was a first-time listener who was like, you guys don't know what the fuck you're talking about. It's like, no, we're talking about from personal experience. And here we are talking again, still from personal experience, but from a different aspect, and different things are going on now than what were going on the last time we talked about this. But I think the key is to expand on it. It's not just a winter thing. It can happen at any time, at any stage of your life. And it's your best practice and best interest to prepare for as many negative outcomes as possible, or negative influences as possible. So that way you are better prepared for them. So that way you can handle them in a more positive manner and not so much a negative, and it doesn't have such a negative impact on you personally. I think for me, that's the biggest takeaway, is not just make it a winter thing, but make it an all year round thing. Like, if you, like, we know there are certain issues that are going to come up in people's lives, prepare for them now while it's quote unquote easier to prepare for them rather than when you have to prepare for them. Instead, prepare for them before they come up rather than having to deal with it when it does, because it's a lot less stressful to deal with it than it is, or it's a lot less stressful to prepare for it than it is to deal with it.
Oh, I like that. I like that. A lot of work to prepare for it.
It is. And some people don't want to, in case it never happens. They feel like they wasted time and energy preparing for something that never did happen.
Right.
But a lot of times, even if you had prepared for something and it didn't happen, like, you might still be in a better situation overall.
Yep.
Make hay while the sun shines, as my wife says.
Oh.
Make hay while the sun shines.
Texting you.
Yeah, she texted me. She didn't comment. Make hay while you can.
Jess, you need to get back on the feed.
She usually watches on YouTube.
No, I think that's really impactful. It's very, very interesting to me as we get through all this stuff, is that there is a lot of work. It's a lot of work when you are doing this on a daily basis. You don't have to be extreme all the time. You know that winter is coming. Next year,
around November, December, it's coming.
It's going to get cold again.
A podcast reminder.
I'll do a reminder in like September, like, hey, by the way, winter is coming. All right. Are you fucked or not? There's the topic for like 2 or 3 weeks straight, or you can like just sprinkle it in there. Part 2. Hey, are you fucked or not?
Wow. All right.
No, I think it's funny, but it's also valid. We've talked about those things, and I've really been a big proponent of if you treat your body like a dumpster, you get your results. That's okay. I love this topic because, and I love this conversation. Sean, thank you for sharing. Nate, thank you for sharing. Ray, I'm sorry I didn't put your comments up on the screen enough. I thought I actually talked about you enough. Sean, you're amazing. Sean Anderson, you're amazing.
Sean Anderson, not Sean in the garage.
Sean Wilkinson, you're both amazing. This is a lot of fun to talk about because I got to be honest and say, you get to this point where you know winter is coming, and I have gotten to the point where I will support people that are doing these things, New Year's resolutions, the fitness side of it, the nutrition side of it. If you're in a job that you're not really happy with, this is the year that you're gonna like branch out. If you're in a relationship that's not doing well, whether it's on you or someone else, you gotta ask yourself why. I am not that typical person that we talk badly about. Like, we have a Valentine's Day episode coming up. Yeah, it's gonna happen. And we've talked about Valentine's Day. Looking back at that, we've had these Valentine's Day episodes where it's like, yeah, well, do you wait for this to bring that bouquet of flowers? You do this, like fucking like get into it. Like, don't wait for it. If that takes a reminder of a calendar date for you to do that, it's okay. You messed up. Let's get after it. Don't do New Year's to Valentine's Day to whatever it might be to get to the point that you're doing your best. I've done it. I don't think it's not a healthy thing. You have to get to that point where you are constantly working, you're striving, you're doing these things. To Ray's point, I don't know if he's still listening, but it's like he's learned a lot, and he's implementing these best practices, not for other people's sake. Byproduct is people are happy. people that are important to you are happy. But you made mistakes. You made some great strides. You've made great successes. You've done things great that were not reciprocated. And you've learned from that. I really love the fact that if you can have an open mind, and it's not about making sure that you're right, they're wrong, they're right and you're wrong. These are those things that you just, the consistency of it. The way that you grow is consistency. It's growing. It's putting yourself. I don't know. So Nate and I are on the camera. I will implore you that your next Sunday, you call it what? Steak and Wine Sunday?
Mm-hmm.
Get crazy. Get crazy.
I go crazy when it's Jess's birthday.
All right. Next week.
That's steak, scallops, and Hasselbeck potatoes.
No. If you get green beans, not the bacon ones, get the ones with like some garlic sauce.
No, so Jess buys the green beans, and then
take control of it.
We cook the green beans and actually cut up bacon.
I can't win on this.
I'm just telling you how we do it.
Sean and I will buy you some vegetables. And then you have to cook them and you have to post it.
Jess is still listening. She's going to the grocery store this weekend.
No, you're not. It's not your vegetables.
We have we have broccoli in the fridge.
The point is, all right. So closing remarks is that I don't like the state that we're in right now. I don't like the fact that we're still divided. I don't like the fact that we are still dealing with the things that we're dealing with. COVID cases are crazy right now. Like in Ohio, it's higher than they have ever been. And the only message is to keep getting vaccinated and boosted. And I can appreciate if you believe in that. I'm of the mindset is that if you believe in that, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine. Don't cause a scene. Take care of yourself. Look at the trusted science that we have. And that's the whole thing is you get into the winter is coming. Winter comes every year. So that is my big thing is that health-wise, learn from it. Just keep building. You know you need to take your vitamins. You know you need to eat better. You need to take vitamin D. You need to do these things. Do all that stuff. From a fitness level that you're talking about, like Sean, is that if you get the New Year's resolution, people, if your New Year's resolution is the same every year, you have failed. Stop. I will implore you to, if you're going to be like, I'm going to get in shape this year, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get like really lean. And then by February, March, you're eating a bag of chips. Your New Year's resolution or your April resolutions needs to be, I will eat less chips. I need to realize what I can actually manage. I look at this as that the winter is coming, is that you need to actually do this on a consistent basis. I hope that you guys can actually build on top of your efforts, that you can actually see some growth. We've done this with the podcast. We keep doing it. I love the viewership. I love the audience on the audio. I really actually I hope you guys actually build off of yourself. I honestly, I didn't prepare closing remarks because I don't know where this conversation was going to go.
Neither did I.
I know you didn't. There's a big part of me that I struggle with. The people that are actually really struggling with this, that I would love to help. But I am of the point right now is that in my personal life, my professional life, things are starting to level out again. That's when me and you guys out there, I know that's when you guys actually get really creative. My creativity is a balance and a struggle when I'm not actually struggling myself.
Say that again.
My creativity on the topics and the life lessons. A year ago, we were talking about like active listening. We were talking about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was going through some like really not so great stuff. I love the fact that Dario was listening out here tonight because he went through some and is still dealing with some really tough stuff.
Absolutely.
And to do this weekly, it's I look at it as like winter is going to come again. To a guy like him, winter means something different.
Mm-hmm.
And that I cannot relate. You can't relate.
No.
But I've had some tough times. This time of the year is tough. To me, is like, you know, my dad passed away in the summer, but his birthday is December.
Mm-hmm. We may not be able to relate, but we can be there for people who are going through something.
It's a good way to look at it. I really think that's the way we look at these things is when you have to let go of the past and keep building on your future. My advice to everyone out there is that as you do that is build a new base of friends and support. Because no matter what you're trying to do, whether it be fitness, whether it be fired from a job, whether you're struggling with a job, whatever it might be, is that you really do rely on other people because they will take you in. The right people will take you in and learn from them and go forward. Cheers. Thank you, guys. I learned more from you guys tonight in the audience and Sean and you, Nate. My closing remarks. I had nothing really to say. Like, I learned so much from you guys. And Dario out there, you're amazing. Cheers to you. Thanks, guys. See you next week.